3-year-old girl is priced at 8 million, a 5-year-old at 12 million, and a 6-year-old boy commands a price as high as 18 million, all because they are well-trained killing machines, mastering every technique of taking life. These weapons are just everyday tools for them. From the moment they learn to walk, their training begins, thoroughly conditioned under a special education system. Even though the price is astronomical, buyers spare no expense, and from an early age, 3 fundamental rules are instilled in them. The first rule, never disobey the buyer's orders. This must be followed under any circumstances. The second rule, never use force without the buyer's command. And the final rule is, when the buyer's personal safety is threatened, the above 2 rules can be ignored, breaking protocol to handle whatever situation arises. The boy before us is today's merchandise to be taken away. The one picking him up is a local wealthy merchant with a pudgy face. They call these buyers parents, and they feel no emotion, just like a computer, inputting whatever commands you desire. As for how to use them and where to use them, it's all up to the parent's whims. As soon as the boy gets in the car, the merchant demands he memorize the face in a photo. Even though he notices a suspicious vehicle behind them, without specific orders from his parent, he can only follow the command to memorize the face. Even if that vehicle might pose a threat, it means nothing, because the parent's orders are absolute. The massive impact causes a severe car accident, and the boy's father gradually loses consciousness. The boy approaches to check his pulse, finding none. At this moment, 2 armed men get out of that car. They slowly advance toward the vehicle, suddenly discovering a small boy who has fallen out. He acts pitiful, claiming his father has stopped breathing. The 2 men sense something is wrong, as their intel never mentioned a child. They can only cautiously approach to check the situation, but their actions trigger the boy's 3rd rule. When parent safety is threatened, handle whatever happens next. He grabs a shard of broken glass and plunges it into one man's throat, preventing him from making any sound, then swiftly takes the gun from his hand. The other man notices something's wrong by now, but the boy has already raised the gun and aimed at him. Before he can react, the man's head is pierced by a bullet. With this, the boy who has lost his parent vanishes, but the priest still has many similar talents. His mouth full of diamond and gold teeth, enough to show his authority. He's only frustrated about losing one prodigy who disappeared, because among all these children, he was the most excellent elite, but without parents present, he cannot use his abilities. This means it's nearly impossible to find his most beloved subordinate in the vast sea of humanity. Perhaps now he's just an ordinary middle school student. A fist the size of a sandbag comes flying, landing heavily on a young man's chest. After striking, he asks, on a scale of 10, "How many points would you give this punch, my dear classmate Huang Haoxian?" He hastily flatters the bully. "This punch is definitely worth 8 points. It would win 180,000 won on a pile driver." Getting this satisfactory answer prevents the bully from continuing his violence. However, at this moment, a yellow-haired kid suddenly appears, pushes away the bully, and charges at Huang Haoxian, claiming he also wants to test how many points his fist would score. Who would have thought the bully would immediately slap the yellow-haired kid, declaring, "This is his plaything. No one else can touch him except himself, understand?" The yellow-haired kid's fists clench tightly in anger. But suddenly, he touches his cheek and gives a thumbs up, saying with such strength, it's no wonder he has the physical qualities of an exchange student. The bully's anger subsides at this, but before leaving he reminds the yellow-haired kid, "Remember to always mind your behavior." The yellow-haired kid's name is Piao Xian. Though not a bully, he's definitely no pushover at this school. Huang Haoxian actually doesn't want much interaction with him, but he often comes to his rescue. And because of this, they've become friends on the surface. A short while later, Huang Haoxian buys Piao Xian some spicy rice cakes to thank him. As for why they came to this place, it's because this is his mother's snack shop. Even the shop name comes from Haoxian. His mother is very hospitable, even serving a large bowl of Odin to treat her son's friend. Huang Haoxian never wanted this scum to know his mother was here, but somehow this guy discovered it anyway. Piao Xian felt that since he knew, he couldn't be impolite. Huang Haoxian thought Piao Xian might do something excessive, and kept a ballpoint pen ready. If he dared to lay a hand on his mother, he would kill him without hesitation. Unexpectedly, Piao Xian stood up and bowed, introducing himself as Huang Haoxian's good friend Piao Xian. Huang Haoxian's mother laughed heartily, delighted that her son had made such a good friend. Before leaving, she packed various snacks for Piao Xian, saying friends should learn to share. Piao Xian was very happy about this, but Huang Haoxian fell into gloom. Because he didn't really know this person well, he wasn't really a friend at all. But as a mother, she didn't think that way, believing that any friend of her son's was like her own child. Huang Haoxian had no choice but to hope Piao Xian wouldn't tell anyone about his mother. Because he wanted to protect his mother, he didn't want her to be harmed by those people. After Piao Xian left, Huang Haoxian shouted angrily, "Didn't I tell you to pretend not to know each other? What if they come here again?" His mother hadn't thought that far. She was just happy to meet her son's friend for the first time, simply hoping her son could get along well with his friends, nothing more. Looking at her calloused hands, Huang Haoxian felt guilty. He vowed to protect his mother. The next day in class, a bowl of snacks was thrown into a dirty rag. Someone claimed that no one could possibly like such filthy food, saying these were from your mother's snack shop. Can I get a refund, or should I go ask your mother for my money back personally? Huang Haoxian suppressed his rage. He had specifically asked Piao Xian, so how did he find out? But the bully wouldn't let up, pouring the snacks directly onto Huang Haoxian's head, even threatening to go complain to his mother. Huang Haoxian tightly gripped the ballpoint pen in his hand. Endless rage made him want to pierce the bully's throat, but just then, he remembered what his mother had said. She hoped her son could get along well with his classmates. The ballpoint pen stopped reluctantly 1 centimeter from his neck. The bully looked at Huang Haoxian's behavior, immediately shouting, "What the hell are you trying to do?" A while later, Piao Xian came to the classroom, only to find everyone silent. Even police had arrived at the scene. From various signs, he learned that Huang Haoxian had jumped from the building. The bully had beaten him for 15 minutes straight. Even after several times passing out and begging for mercy, the bully's fists didn't stop. Even the classmates chose to remain silent. What finally ended the violence was Huang Haoxian himself. He looked at the window and resolutely chose to jump. Afterward, the bully wasn't arrested. Instead, he gathered several classmates, saying he hoped they would take responsibility for this incident. There's a convenient law in their country. First-time juvenile offenders receive lighter sentences, but he could no longer benefit from this provision. Because he had repeated a year, they should say it was just a joke that accidentally pushed him off. Even if there's a civil lawsuit, there's a way around it. As long as no one can sue, the problem doesn't exist. And even if problems arise, you're all just first-time offenders. There won't be heavy penalties. Of course, I'm not asking you to do this for free. 10 million each. Agree, and you can take it right now. Looking at the piles of cash on the ground, they couldn't resist the temptation and agreed. Meanwhile, when Huang Haoxian's mother learned of this, she became inconsolable, lost all hope in life, couldn't find motivation for anything. But in the falling darkness beneath the building, a few teenagers appeared sporadically. It was those bullies. They came to Huang Haoxian's building, but found the elevator stuck on the 5th floor, not moving. With no choice, they decided to take the stairs up. When they reached the 5th floor, they discovered a fire extinguisher blocking the elevator door. No wonder the elevator hadn't moved at all. Just as the bully cursed, asking which idiot did this, a man in a trench coat appeared in the stairwell. That person was none other than the yellow-haired Piao Xian. The bully couldn't understand. How are you here? Piao Xian didn't waste words, saying he had 2 questions. How did you know Huang Haoxian's family ran a spicy rice cake shop? The bully explained, that day I saw you sharing lots of snacks with neighborhood kids. How could you afford such food when you're poor? Then I saw Huang Haoxian arguing with someone. It wasn't hard to figure out what was going on. So it was because of me? Then there's the second question. Think carefully before answering. Why did you come here? The bully raised his metal pipe. Isn't it obvious? Haoxian's mother wants to file a lawsuit. We're just here to persuade her otherwise, and since you're here too. I've always found you annoying. You think I couldn't tell? All your actions were just pretense. Pretending to bully Huang Haoxian, when actually you were protecting that bastard. Don't think I'm really stupid enough not to see through all this. Today I can deal with you too. But Piao Xian calmly picked up the fire extinguisher. Thanks for explaining so clearly. But I actually predicted this. I just wanted confirmation. Piao Xian walked toward the bully, speaking slowly. The cuneiform bone in your metatarsal is crushed. Your leg should be completely immobile now. The first rule carved into children's hearts. A parent's word is an absolute command. The second rule is, never use force without parental permission. But there's the most important third rule. When parent safety is threatened, the above 2 rules can be ignored. Because Haoxian's mom told me she treats all of Haoxian's friends as her own children. So you're threatening my mother, which means I can tear you to pieces. Meanwhile, at the Deadpool Mansion's training facility, a nun received a phone call reportedly from their country. On the other end was White Tiger Human Resources. The priest tensed up, immediately putting the call on speaker. Abnormal activity detected within their borders. We seem to have found that person. The lost legend of Deadpool Tower. This person is currently in their country, once a member of the Deadpool training facility. As part of a special cultivation multi-purpose weapons program, codename Sean, now known as Piao Xian, a seemingly gentle and sunny boy, but with an unspeakable secret. Codename Sean, to date the most perfect masterpiece in Deadpool Tower, exceptional in various killing techniques and weapons, master of assassination, a product outstanding in every field. Therefore, he was assigned to a top-tier client, a certain Japanese criminal organization. However, through some twist of fate, he was mysteriously sent to their country instead, resulting in him losing his actual buyer, or so-called parent, leading to the loss of control over him. The priest lamented silently, thinking he was dead, had almost given up. Who would have thought White Tiger HR would discover his whereabouts? The priest immediately began making arrangements, determined to bring him back. Ruikyu can proceed to their country to begin rescue operations, and in case of unavoidable obstacles, any force may be used. Meanwhile, the bully's father came to Haoxian's snack shop. He bowed deeply to Haoxian's mother, claiming he would pay all medical expenses and compensation for emotional distress. Haoxian's mother was unmoved, saying this wasn't something a simple apology could resolve. Kwon Bingu stood there stunned. He hadn't expected this woman to be so difficult. If it's going to be difficult, then forget it. He immediately turned and left without looking back. If you won't settle, there's no point wasting time. There are other ways to resolve this. There are many ways to handle things. No need to bow and scrape to you. Because he planned to demolish all the buildings in this area and build a new multifunctional commercial street. Then he ordered his driver, "Go check on that little bastard now." Shortly after, they arrived at Sacred Heart Hospital. Joseph lay motionless in the hospital bed. Kwon Bingu asked the nurse to step out, saying he wanted some private time with his son. The nurse had barely left when a heavy slap landed on Joseph's face. "Do you know what makes me angriest? It's not that you bullied some kids, or that you made one jump from a building. It's that you took weapons to their home to cause trouble. Are you brainless? When will you learn to resolve things like an adult?" Meanwhile, Kwon Bingu's secretary and his men found Piao Xian. They worked cleanly and efficiently, never leaving evidence. Even when teaching a lesson to a brat, they wore gloves. You're quite capable, holding your own against 4 peers at once. But it's different with adults. Because of what you did, you've brought shame to our young master, so you definitely need to pay a heavy price. This is how adults handle things. At sunset, after they left, Piao Xian slowly got up, sneering as he reset his dislocated arm. "How boring. Can't adults tell the difference between a dislocated arm and a broken one? This is nothing compared to Aunt Ruiku's beatings. But things have become troublesome. Without orders, I can't use my abilities. Next, I should think carefully about how to get a new identity." Just as he was pondering this, he ran into Hoxian's mother on the street. She looked at the child before her in disbelief. Why was he so dirty? What had happened? She brought Piao Xian to her shop, served him various foods, hoping he would eat more. Hearing these words, his body trembled slightly, then immediately began devouring the food. Seeing him eat so hurriedly, Hoxian's mother said, "Quickly drink some water, or you'll get indigestion." Then he took a water bottle and he gulped it all down. Fortunately, Hoxian's mother didn't give any more orders, or Piao Xian might have died from overeating in this shop. Afterward, Piao Xian asked about Huang Hoxian's condition. Hoxian's mother grew somber, her voice weak and lifeless. She said Hoxian's surgery was progressing well, now it's just a matter of recovery. Although things look very difficult now, she still believes he can get better. But no matter what, why did her son have to suffer such harm? Facing his current condition, as a mother she feels heartbroken that she can't do anything for him. Why are they allowed to bully people like this? Those bastards. She really wants to tear them to pieces just like this rice ball. Piao Xian quietly listened to this mother pour out everything. When Hoxian's mother came to her senses, saying she shouldn't tell such things to a child, she found that Piao Xian had already left. As night approached in the Bingu group building, Kwon Bingu was holding the third quarter evening party with company employees. Their performance had reached new heights among all competitors in these 9 months. But one of the bartenders began acting strangely. The heart-wrenching sound of a breaking bottle startled everyone. Security personnel immediately came to stop his behavior. But the cocktail party instantly became chaos. They hurriedly shouted, "Turn on the exhibition hall lights." But when the lights came on, they discovered 3 or 5 people already unconscious. That yellow-haired kid had vanished. Kwon Bingu looked at the commotion below with confusion. A yellow-haired child, while everyone was in turmoil. Deadly intent lurked beneath the tables. Because for children trained at Deadpool Tower, the first principle is, a parent's word is absolute. A figure slowly appeared behind Piao Xian, putting on his gloves. It was Mr. Wu, Kwon Bingu's secretary, who was also puzzled. Wasn't that arm broken by him? Let me teach you how to really break an arm. Blood seeped from slight cuts on his face as Piao Xian slowly looked up. Kwon Bingu glared at this brat with a gloomy expression. Piao Xian raised both hands, declaring that if they were professionals, he would already be dead. But Kwon Bingu felt. This kid's words revealed a professional quality. Could he be someone trained by an organization? Piao Xian said, "If you must say which organization I belong to, it would be Good Leisure Snack Shop." Kwon Bingu was stunned. "Not that stinking snack shop? Did that woman send you to kill me?" However, Piao Xian said that wasn't the case. What she hoped was that I would tear you to pieces. This isn't simple revenge or punishment for you, but following the first principle. Kwon Bingu muttered weakly. "Seems I still wasn't thorough enough. Should have dealt with that woman cleanly from the start. Should have killed everyone involved." Piao Xian calmly said, "Why do you have to say such unnecessary things? The third rule, when parents' safety is threatened, break the rules and handle everything that follows. Like father, like son, you're both the same. Both waste that needs to be cleaned up." Meanwhile, in Sacred Heart Hospital's ward, a nurse came to change Joseph's pain medication. But she talked about how school violence had become very rampant. "The person who beat you up so badly must be quite strong. I've never seen a student so severely injured. By the way, earlier today when you were talking to your father, you mentioned these 3 principles. Who told you about them? However, Joseph now noticed something was wrong. The color of the medicine in that syringe wasn't right, but the nurse said not to worry, she only used half the dose, it won't kill you. Can you answer my question? Where did you hear about these 3 principles? Don't say you don't know, I heard it very clearly earlier today. Or let me ask a different question. Do you know someone called Sean, Deadpool Tower's Ruikyu, specializing in disguise and infiltration, expert in interrogation and torture? The youngest child priced at 12 million, not only mastering various killing techniques, but even when facing unreasonable orders, they would be completed immediately. Nothing they can't do that you can imagine. He was the most perfect creation among all merchandise in Deadpool Tower. Mom just said one sentence, wanting to crush all those people to pieces. He then infiltrated the Bingu group, slaughtering everyone. Even a well-known corporate boss would be killed without hesitation. When Ruikyu arrived at the scene, she found no one here had survived. She immediately called the priest. Codename Sean had used his abilities. She reported everything she saw. The priest showed disbelief. Normally this shouldn't be possible. In Deadpool Tower's entire history, this had never happened before. Children are bound by 3 rules. These are absolute principles that control their behavior. If actions like this occurred under the rules restrictions, then this isn't a simple matter. If Sean truly broke free from the absolute principles, and if word got out that he was from Deadpool Tower, Deadpool Tower's reputation would suffer unprecedented damage. From now on, the action plan must change. Investigating Sean becomes the primary task. Understand clearly whether he has broken free from control, and determine if he truly used force. If you encounter trouble in this country, you can seek help from White Tiger Human Resources. The next day at Yanha's school, a teacher walked in nervously. This was Ruikyu in disguise. Preliminary investigation showed Sean was at this school. She didn't understand why Sean would be here, but as Sean's former mentor, she was excited, very eager to understand Sean's past. How had he grown up? He used to be Ruikyu's favorite child, perfectly mastering any weapon she taught him. But when she came to that classroom, she discovered this person was simply a hooligan. His posture, whether standing or sitting, was extremely unrefined. Even his expressions showed a crude demeanor, completely losing his former gentlemanly yet cold manner. Ruikyu showed an expression of disbelief. Could this really be the grown-up Sean? This guy kept chattering endlessly, his voice so loud it even woke up the bully behind him. They immediately started arguing. Ruikyu thought he would get angry, release his original abilities, because when young, Sean would challenge Ruikyu just to confirm the other's combat ability. But the next scene made Ruikyu feel disgusted. That guy was immediately beaten down mercilessly by the bully, taking less than 2.5 minutes to be knocked to the ground. Given this situation, Ruikyu could only start teaching class, thinking he might be concealing his identity and wouldn't use his power recklessly. He might still be under the control of the 3 rules, but more information was needed to verify her suspicions. But his serious, keen eyes were quite different from other students. Because Deadpool's children need not only strong bodies but clear minds, Sean was always outstanding among his peers. Even if he could hide his strength, his intelligence might unconsciously show through, just as Ruikyu was secretly checking what he was writing. After class ended, Ruikyu went to the women's restroom feeling frustrated. Sean couldn't possibly be like this. He was completely different from before, but it was also very strange. That face was so familiar, yet had lost its former elegance. Could all this be coincidence? Just thinking about that drawing made it unbelievable. Could that foolish child really be Sean? Plans have changed. Now we're not considering the 3 rules issue. First, confirm whether he's really Sean. After school, Ruikyu, disguised as a female student, followed behind Piao Xian. Just then a voice called out to Piao Xian. It was Hoxian's mother, who had just finished buying groceries and was heading home. Since she bought quite a lot, she asked, "Xian, could you help me?" Piao Xian immediately went to help without thinking to thank him. Hoxian's mother invited him to her home for something to eat. As soon as they reached Hoxian's snack shop, Piao Xian began eating heartily. However, Ruikyu, who had followed them, felt gloomy because Joseph had mentioned earlier he had put an old woman's son in intensive care. She clearly had a son. So what was her relationship with Piao Xian? The closer she looked at him, the more vulgar he seemed, completely unlike Sean. How could someone with Sean's face appear so disgusting? Just then, Ruikyu was burned by the food in her hand. She had never eaten such spicy odin, frantically calling for water. Hoxian's mother immediately passed her some. Ruikyu had barely taken 2 sips. When it reminded her of past events, Sean never ate spicy food before. He hated spicy food the most. During every training session with spicy food, he would tightly grip Aunt Ruikyu's hand. Yet this guy was eating spicy rice cakes in big mouthfuls. When the old woman asked about the taste, he gave an immediate thumbs up, but she noticed his hand behind his back was tightly clenched with bulging veins. Was he enduring the spiciness all along? Just then, Ruikyu had a sudden realization. When waiting at the traffic light, the old woman said, "Could you help me carry this?" And he immediately went to help. After helping, she said, "Come to the shop for some snacks before going home," and he agreed right away. Even now, this child always follows the old woman's words, helping her with any needed chores. He actually follows her commands. From those dead people, we discovered that such high-quality work couldn't be completed without orders. If someone commanded Sean to destroy the Bingu group, then everything makes sense. Only this old woman would have such motivation. In other words, Sean hasn't broken free from the 3 rules. He views this woman as a parent and follows her orders. Connecting all the clues obtained, this is the only explanation that makes sense. If that's the case, let's use the simplest method to verify this guess. Seeing the scene before her, Ruikyu was overjoyed. Her guess wasn't wrong at all. At sunset, the two came to a sparsely populated street corner. Deadpool Tower's 3rd rule: good children will break rules and handle everything that follows when parents face physical threats. Piao Xian grabbed the newcomer's hand and said, "Aunt Ruikyu, are you going to follow me all day?" Hearing this, Ruikyu showed an even more coquettish expression. "So you really are Sean. Long time no see, how have you been? But this is also very strange. Why do you follow that old woman's orders like following a parent?" Logically, the owner of a rundown snack shop couldn't possibly be a Deadpool Tower client. But regardless of the reason, "My dear child Sean, it's time to come home. You understand? Many more clients are waiting for you." Sean recalled the past. Should he really go back? Once again return to that Deadpool Tower Sean whose hands were constantly stained with blood from training? He froze slightly. What just happened? What was that memory? Ruikyu said blankly. "Looks like you really don't plan to come back with me obediently." At this moment, Sean was quickly escaping, surprising him that they had sent Aunt Ruikyu. There was another problem. Who was that woman appearing in fragments of his memory? Why did she appear in his mind? Near nightfall, at the Deadpool Tower mansion, the priest anxiously asked why they let Sean escape. The other end of the phone explained, "I was negligent and let him get away, but I've obtained some information about the old woman who can control the 3 rules." From observation, Sean seems to recognize that woman as his parent, but given the current situation, the old woman might not have intentionally used the rules. Further investigation is needed to determine the direction of truth. Can only verify the old woman's identity first, then make plans. But no matter what, we must bring Sean back at any cost, even if it means killing her. The outwardly gentle and kind nun is actually a ruthless intelligence operative, not only skilled in using various weapons. Even those children who kill without blinking are her students. Her greatest feature is disguise. She can not only disguise herself as a hospital nurse to infiltrate hospitals and gather intelligence, but also pose as a school teacher, even dress up as a female student without others noticing. Today, she dressed herself as a noble rich lady, pretending to be Sean's birth parent. And her reason for doing this was to make Sean return to Deadpool Tower, because Sean had made Huang Hoxian's mother his parent. If she could voluntarily give up custody of Sean, Deadpool Tower could regain control over him. Ruikyu slowly said to Huang Hoxian's mother, "Xian actually never eats spicy food, and shouldn't eat such junk food while growing. Although I know Xian listens to you very well, but as parents we want to protect our children from the bottom of our hearts. So if Xian comes here again, I hope you can tell him. Never come back again. Return to your original home." But Hoxian's mother disagreed, because she felt, although you're his birth parent, have you really looked at his face? What about his clothes? How is he living at school? Have you understood any of these things? He's always dirty. Every time I ask, he says it's from wrestling. Originally thought boys all grow up this way, but Hoxian often said the same thing. Actually, it's easy to guess they're always lying, just to keep their mothers from worrying. I've already come to think of Xian as my own son, don't want him to end up like Hoxian, so unconsciously I often pass by to check on him. What Xian needs now is parents who can take care of him, since you're so busy often traveling. Let me look after him then, I'm sorry but I can't agree to your request. Getting this response, Ruikyu was furious. She immediately called the priest. First plan attempt failed. This old woman shows stronger determination about custody than expected. The priest said, originally wanted to resolve this quietly since that's impossible, implement the second plan. However, try not to cause too big a disturbance, and this second plan, the method to bring the good child back to Deadpool Tower is, after their recognized parent dies, the child will return to Deadpool Tower and they'll regain control over the children. Later, in a department store, Ruikyu had been following Hoxian's mother from the small restaurant to here, just waiting for the right moment to kill her. The sprinkler system in the mall kept activating, and behind Hoxian's mother, Ruikyu was raising a gun aimed at her head. But this shot was blocked by a frying pan held by Sean, who had been lurking near Hoxian's mother. Seeing Sean, Ruikyu was overjoyed. Indeed, this child was her favorite one. Sean hadn't expected that something he'd only seen in games and tried once would actually work to block bullets. However, what came next was the 3rd rule of the 3 laws. When parents' lives are threatened, break the status quo and handle what comes next. Ruikyu paid no attention, only wanting to quickly kill the old woman and completely free Sean from her grasp. Haven't I taught you? Combat requires brains. Let's treat this as a makeup lesson for you. This fight will make you more perfect. Don't forget what the ultimate goal is. Hearing these words, Sean pondered thoughtfully, realizing he needed to end this battle quickly. Seeing this situation, Ruikyu became even more excited. Just eliminate that old woman, and Sean would return. After all, he was a product of the Deadpool mansion. But Sean's face darkened. You actually call me an object? Why would you want me to return to a home that considers me an object? If you say I'm an object, then you're just a useful tool too. On the other side, Hoxian's mother looked nervously at her surroundings, when suddenly a crying child appeared behind her. The little boy was sobbing. "Mom, where are you?" Hoxian's mother didn't think twice, and hurried forward to ask about the situation. The little boy cried that his mother had disappeared without a trace, and he couldn't find her, hoping the old woman could help him. However, behind this lay a deadly trap. Just as he was about to stab Hoxian's mother, Sean rushed there in panic, and the boy's blade stopped. He recognized that face. The reputation of Sean from Deadpool Mansion was no joke. If he made any rash moves, he definitely wouldn't leave here alive, and Aunt Ruikyu probably had lost her ability to act too. Sean crouched down to ask if he had any family phone numbers, saying he'd be very willing to help find his mother. On the surface, the boy said he couldn't remember any phone numbers, but inside, he was planning how to kill Hoxian's mother. Sean was too much of a variable. He could only use maternal instincts to get him away first. But Sean didn't give him that chance. He quickly picked up the child in front of him, then warned him in a cold tone. "Don't try anything strange, or you'll die horribly. If you stop now, I can let you go, but don't have any other ideas. You must have contact information for your superiors. Give me the phone number, let me talk to them." But the boy still acted clueless, raising a blade behind his back. Sean delivered a quick chop to knock him unconscious, eliminating any possible crisis. Afterward, firefighters arrived at the scene to handle the aftermath. While in the mansion of Deadpool Mansion, a phone rang in the silent night, and the priest drowsily crawled out of bed. He had warned everyone that if anyone disturbed his peaceful sleep, they would die horribly. When he groggily answered the phone, he immediately abandoned that line of thinking. Hearing the voice on the other end made him extremely excited, and this call was from Sean. The fact that it came from this phone number meant that Ruikyu and their operation had failed. The priest asked, "Are Ruikyu and Eugene dead?" But Sean replied, "What kind of reaction is that? They're not dead, but no matter what, sending more people will result in the same outcome, so don't waste your energy. If you want, you can come see me directly." The priest understood. "I thought you would run away. Don't tell me you want to confront Deadpool Mansion head-on." But Sean said it wouldn't turn out the way you imagined. Based on the third law, if parents' lives were threatened, he would handle the situation accordingly. He wouldn't run away, but would consider Deadpool Mansion a threat and respond with appropriate counterattacks. Hearing these words, the priest fell to his knees, letting out a maniacal laugh. "It's exactly as expected. You're still so faithful to the three laws even now. Truly my most beloved and perfect child. Send Eugene back, and I won't touch that old woman." Then Sean told Aunt Ruikyu to come pick him up in an hour, and hung up the phone. The priest prayed to the phone again. "I truly love you so much. You're my most beloved child. I will definitely find a way to bring you back." The children of Deadpool Mansion were commodities belonging to buyers, namely their parents. If their parents died, ownership would return to Deadpool Mansion, after which they could be sold to another parent. This cycle would repeat after each parent's death. Although profit could be made from each sale, it also created a problem. If one child was repeatedly sold multiple times, not only would Deadpool Mansion's reputation suffer, but the child would also be sealed away in Deadpool Mansion for failing to protect buyers, thus losing their value. The child before them had been sold 4 times, all because he failed to protect his parents. The priest was very unhappy about this. Failing to protect parents' lives 4 times was an unprecedented disgrace in Deadpool Mansion's history. If this happened again, they would dispose of such children. The method was simple: kill them and bury them in graves. Therefore, they desperately needed to become indispensable talents. The priest gave Eugene a chance to go to Korea and help Ruikyu bring back Sean, otherwise he'd be a useless waste. Useless things were simply disposed of, no exceptions made. If he didn't want to be disposed of, he had to prove his value. But when Eugene came to Korea, he was knocked out and taken back by Sean. Sean woke Eugene up, who immediately tried to reach for his weapon, but obviously Sean had thrown it away. Sean brought Eugene a bowl of spicy rice cakes. Although they were now opponents, they had come from the same place, and he didn't want to treat a young child heartlessly. On the surface, Eugene said, "Who would want to eat such things?" But the next second, he cleaned the plate completely. Sean praised him. "It's delicious, right?" He even packed 2 more portions. Eugene acted indifferent. Sean had a smug look. "You were wolfing it down just now, but now you're saying it's just okay?" Just then, a figure appeared on the stairs. It was Aunt Ruikyu, who had come to pick up Eugene. She looked at Eugene with anger, her eyes full of disappointment. Even so, she still had to take Eugene back. After all, this was what the priest had requested. As they were leaving, Sean didn't forget to hand over 2 takeout portions, saying it would be a long journey, and they'd surely get hungry. But Aunt Ruikyu didn't see it that way. She felt Sean was being too relaxed. "This isn't the way Deadpool Mansion taught you. I haven't given up on you yet. You better watch out." With that, Aunt Ruikyu left with Eugene, not forgetting to command, "If you had dealt with that old woman promptly, things wouldn't have become so complicated. Useless children like you should have been disposed of long ago. Good at nothing except eating." At this moment, Sean stood frozen in place, then quickly turned around, calling out to the 2 who were about to leave. He asked one last thing. saying, "Do you still want to eat these spicy rice cakes?" Hearing this, Eugene was stunned. What was he up to? Suddenly he burst into tears, saying the rice cakes were delicious, he loved them and wanted more. Well then, don't leave, come back to Good Leisure Restaurant. But things weren't that simple. Just earlier when Aunt Ruikyu mentioned he would definitely be disposed of when he returned, Eugene actually didn't want to eat the rice cakes at all. If he had another chance, he wanted to prove his worth. When Sean's voice rang out, Ruikyu thought of an idea. To pretend to comply, let Eugene return to Sean and that old woman's side. This was the last chance. If you couldn't kill her, you would die. When Eugene looked at Sean before him, he made up his mind internally. He was willing to do it. This was the only chance to avoid being disposed of. Because of this, Sean hadn't noticed anything unusual about Eugene and planned to take him back to Good Leisure Restaurant. Seeing Sean like this, Ruikyu felt that Sean still considered her a threat. The third law was still in effect. Then she pretended to be very reluctant. Wasn't it agreed that Eugene would be returned? Sean stated that since the child said he wanted to stay, he would take him in. Ruikyu then quietly said to Eugene, "Go ahead, the path has been laid out for you. Kill the old woman and bring Sean back. You have no choice." Then Ruikyu mentioned that if negotiations failed, Deadpool Mansion would target the old woman again. You should know this rule. But Sean seemed indifferent about this, saying that if it really came to that, he would tear any intruders to pieces. Eugene looked at Sean beside him, inexplicably feeling a sense of admiration. Not long after, they returned to Hoxian's mother's home. Hoxian's mom prepared a large table of dishes, saying they must be hungry after such a long day. However, what a coincidence that his mother happened to be friends with your mother. Sean was also embarrassed. How could he explain this? Actually, they're both the same person. There was no way to explain it clearly. Facing the table full of hot dishes, Eugene bowed his head to thank heaven for the food, but in his heart, he was calculating when to kill this old woman. The two chatted casually, while Sean became increasingly troubled. After all, if not for Hoxian's mom's invitation, he had never been to Huang Hoxian's home before. The house was full of warmth, with freshly washed sneakers still drying, and Huang Hoxian's room. In a daze, he asked Hoxian's mom if he could go in and take a look. Hoxian's mom didn't refuse this request. The moment he opened the door, his heart was full of envy. Although it was just an ordinary room, simple and plain, for Sean, these were things he only had in dreams. He had only seen such scenes in movies or plays, just a room of someone with dreams, studying hard every day. But even such a middle-class family was beyond Sean's reach. He had never yearned so much for such a family, and feelings of frustration welled up in his heart, thinking that Huang Hoxian would return to this room every day. He could have lived happily and enjoyed his carefree school life. He really shouldn't have been just a bystander back then. On the other side, Eugene thanked Hoxian's mom after eating his fill. Looking over, Sean was still in the room. Now that he wasn't by her side, it was the perfect time for assassination. Eugene quietly asked if there was anyone else in the house. As he asked, his hand reached behind his back. Hoxian's mom couldn't speak too directly, saying that Hoxian's father was needed too much in heaven, so she had no choice but to let him go. In other words, he became a member of another family. But Eugene's face darkened, saying, "Your son probably couldn't become a family member. Because a useless failure couldn't become family in any household, family meant satisfying others' needs and proving your value to other members. Otherwise, you're just a waste of resources, an item that should be discarded." This was a principle he had learned. Hearing these words, Hoxian's mom was completely stunned. How could such a young child speak so coldly? She scolded Eugene, saying that family shouldn't be like this. When she was about to explain things clearly, Sean came out and playfully hugged Eugene, so Hoxian's mom had no choice but to stop. She didn't want to interrupt their happy moment. On a dark and windy night, Sean was sleeping soundly and snoring, while Eugene lay wide-eyed, constantly looking for the right moment to kill Hoxian's mom. At this time, light was coming from Huang Hoxian's room. When Eugene crept over following the light, he discovered Hoxian's mom had fallen asleep in Huang Hoxian's chair. Eugene kept thinking about what the old woman had said earlier. She called useless children her family members, and even showed kindness to strangers she met for the first time. This was completely different from the priest's attitude. She had said that family wasn't supposed to be like that, so what was a real family supposed to be like? But no matter what, he still had to prove his worth. He had to become an indispensable part of the family. However, as he raised the gun, he found his hand trembling uncontrollably. At this moment, the room door was gently closed, and Sean, seeing this situation, asked, "You little brat, is this really your choice? If it is, you can tell me directly. I can either spare you or kill you." The boy raised his gun toward the 60-year-old woman, but despite being an assassin, he couldn't pull the trigger. His hands wouldn't stop shaking, the pressure in his heart overwhelming his entire body, because beside him stood a perfect masterpiece, Deadpool Mansion's Sean, a product that excelled in every field. The boy turned and pointed the gun at Sean, saying he was just following orders, "Don't interfere." It turned out that Sean had known from the beginning that Eugene came here to assassinate Hoxian's mom. He'd already taken the bullets out of the gun, which was taken from Ruikyu, 15 rounds of 9mm, weighing 112.5 grams. As an assassin, you didn't even notice the magazine was empty. Very unprofessional. Eugene became furious and pulled out a short blade to strike. Sean immediately pinned Eugene against the doorframe, but unexpectedly, he managed to turn the doorknob, and with a sidestep, he slipped inside. Facing the sleeping Hoxian's mom, Sean was at a loss. He quickly raised his hand hands to signal, "Don't make too much noise, calm down and we can talk about everything." Eugene looked back. The old woman was now within reach. It was the perfect time to kill her. Sean gripped Eugene's clothes tightly and scolded, saying he really didn't want to make any noise to disturb Hoxian's mom's sleep. "You can't win against me, and you can't kill her because your attacks are too straightforward. I can predict your next move easily." But this commotion still woke up Hoxian's mom, who loudly scolded Sean for bullying his little brother. "How old are you now and how young is he?" Eugene saw this as a perfect opportunity to kill her, but Sean seemed to have a radar sense, immediately detecting the danger and quietly warning Eugene, "If you dare make a move, you'll die horribly." Then he quickly changed his expression, saying they were just playing around. There was no fighting at all. Eugene felt Sean's intimidating presence and realized from the bottom of his heart that even with 10 more years of training, he couldn't beat Sean. As long as Sean was nearby, he couldn't touch a single hair on this old woman. He would have to wait for a moment when Sean wasn't around, or when he couldn't react in time. Hoxian's mom crouched down and asked him not to mess around with his big brother. After all, they were all family, but Eugene couldn't understand. Why did she call him family again? How could an outsider become a family member? Hoxian's mom then explained that eating under the same roof, sleeping in the same house, aren't we already family? Just then, a doorbell shattered the quiet night. All three froze in place. Who could be visiting before dawn? Hoxian's mom hurried to open the main door, finding an unfamiliar high school girl. The visitor politely introduced herself. "I'm sorry to disturb you so early. I'm Mary, Eugene's sister, and I've come to take him home." "Thank you very much, kind lady, for taking in Eugene so late at night." Sean was quite puzzled by this. "Really? Eugene has a sister? Well, what brings you here?" Mary replied. "I'm just here to pick up Eugene and check on that woman's safety. Isn't this what was agreed with the priest? Although Ruikyu unilaterally decided to let you bring Eugene here, that was just her personal decision, not representing the priest." Sean couldn't understand. "If this is a friendly conversation, why don't you properly put away your blade? Is this your idea of sincerity?" Mary was surprised that Sean had noticed even this. "If you properly accept cooperation, things won't turn out the way you imagine." Eugene rushed out of the room at this point, and the two embraced immediately, appearing to be a loving sister and brother on the surface. But behind this facade was cold ruthlessness, saying the priest was very disappointed. Failing the mission meant being a useless burden. "You'll be disposed of immediately when we return." Sean seemed to notice Eugene's unwillingness, but there was no choice. Hoxian's mom was his parent after all, the one he needed to protect. Eugene disagreed with Mary's approach, saying he had his own plan. The reason was that he needed to first gain the family's trust to proceed gradually. Assassinating the old woman wasn't so simple, all because of that man's presence. Deadpool Mansion's Sean was their most perfect creation to date. Killing the old woman under such a person's protection was no easy task. Although he didn't look impressive, was ugly and stupid, looking like a fierce monkey. But I've fought with him. He's definitely not someone who can be dealt with easily. Mary admitted her rashness had disrupted Eugene's plan, but not to worry, a new operation had already begun. They should retreat for now, and Eugene had no choice but to go back with Mary to make new plans. Eugene lowered his head in disappointment, his heart filled with mixed emotions. But unexpectedly, Hoxian's mom called out to him, saying next time he came, she would prepare an even more sumptuous dinner. Eugene looked at this old woman who called him family, his eyes widening inexplicably, then left without looking back, though the corners of his mouth seemed to curl up slightly. Meanwhile, Hoxian's mom said to Sean, "Remember to bring him back next time. I want to properly show off my cooking skills." Sean understood these words and said he would definitely bring him back. The next day, at Yonhei Middle School, the principal expressed deep apologies to Hoxian's mom, saying they had already discussed specific punishments for the perpetrators through the school violence committee. Although it was a bit late, all the parents were willing to bear all costs, and all the violating children would be suspended. Here's the list of perpetrators, you can check it. Suddenly, Hoxian's mom was completely stunned looking at the documents before her. Why is this person's photo here? And among those perpetrators' files placed first was Sean. Here comes the intense part at Deadpool Mansion. The priest angrily rebuked Ruikyu, asking why such a thing happened. Ruikyu offered no explanation. The operation failed, that's all. No excuses. She ordered Eugene to kill that old woman, but he consistently failed to complete this task. In Deadpool Mansion, someone who couldn't properly execute orders should be disposed of early. But the priest said this wasn't the answer he wanted. His instructions were to rescue Eugene, and after that, not to disturb them anymore. Yet you didn't do this. Instead, you ordered Eugene to assassinate the old woman. Could it be that you can no longer fully obey my orders? I take promises very seriously. Before God, only faith and trust exist. There can be no other impurities. Otherwise, it would violate the doctrine of laws. All other forms are heretical. Those children were originally lacking in faith, which is why the 3 laws were created as a means to control them. Think about it another way. What would happen if they all acted independently without constraints, commands, trust, promises? These are Deadpool Mansions. Absolute rules. Don't worry too much about getting Sean back. There are many ways to accomplish this, even without touching that old woman. Mary has already started handling it. Let's wait and see. The next day, Sean returned to school as usual, but all the other students looked at him strangely. Even when he asked his desk mate, he still couldn't get an answer. No one was willing to engage with him. Only the school bully sitting behind him dared to chat with him. He showed his phone to Xian. The person under his arm was actually Joseph. This photo was actually taken when he was originally horsing around with Huang Haoxian, just that the person in it had been poorly photoshopped to look like Joseph. The amateur level made him quite speechless. He asked where the photo came from, but the people behind him didn't dare speak directly, only feeling chills down their spines. They immediately bowed and scraped before Sean, saying it was all their fault before, they shouldn't have bullied him like that. Even Joseph was beaten up by you and became your lackey. This news has spread throughout the school. You can see how submissive he is in the photo. He even found out you have connections with certain gangs. We always knew you weren't ordinary. And there's one more thing. They say you ordered Joseph to kill Huang Haoxian. You're really something. Sean was completely baffled at this moment. What was all this about? When had he ever done such things? But no one believed his words, only believing the rumors spreading through school. The big guy squeezed his way in, saying you're really cool, but the desk mate next to him whimpered, "This is my seat." The big guy immediately became upset. Do you want to become the second Huang Haoxian? But that slap was blocked directly by Sean, who smiled and tried to smooth things over. Let's go outside to talk. I really want to keep a low profile. The other students looked at him like he was the plague. Sean was even more confused. Who started these rumors? Afterward, the three acted like Sean's followers, explaining that this all started early morning in the group chat. Suddenly, someone joined the group, posted some photos, said a few words, then immediately left. After that, it caused an uproar. Sean couldn't understand, was this Deadpool Mansion's trick? But what was the purpose of doing this? He slowly stood up and said, I just want to quietly attend school and graduate naturally. I don't want to be caught up in these childish pranks. The people I need to deal with aren't these kids, but rather the adult world that has set its sights further. So what needs to be ensured is, this situation doesn't escalate further. Guys, don't let things become more serious. The three thugs were stunned. He actually called them guys. They immediately chimed in saying, just tell them what to do, they'd serve him. However, from a distance, Haoxian's mom witnessed everything. She incredulously recalled the photo she had seen at the principal's office. She had also thought it was a misunderstanding. Haoxian and Xian were very good friends. But the problem was that the principal had shown such a photo with Sean and Joseph happily roughhousing together, and Joseph was the perpetrator who had harmed her son. The principal felt this incident wasn't accidental. Perhaps Piao Xian was the instigator. It was even difficult to contact his parents. This child seemed to have never received normal family education. From an educator's experience, this type of child was very likely to go astray. You shouldn't have trusted that child so much. After that, Sean hoped to peacefully quell these rumors. They actually believed his act completely. He hadn't expected them to have such a naive side. Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks, having long noticed the figure standing behind the alley. It was Mary. She thought she had hidden well enough, yet was still discovered. Sean took off his hair tie and asked what she was trying to do. Why complicate matters? But Mary imitated Sean's way of tying up his hair. Don't you like it? I'm not dealing with Piao Xian who ties up his hair, but Sean who lets it down. How about it? Making you the #1 bully at school. How does it feel? The cold stares from classmates, eyes full of betrayal and contempt. Don't you like it at all, Sean? He finally realized that all this was Mary's doing, but the crudeness of these photos was truly surprising. Yet they could still fool these stupid masses. Just then, Sean was greatly startled. How can you just start shooting? Weren't you supposed to take me back? But Mary felt that precisely because he was Sean, she had the most basic expectations and respect for him. Isn't dying better than being abandoned? Mary took off the backpack hanging on her shoulder and slowly approached Sean, who was hiding behind the alley. When she reached the corner, Sean raised his fist and questioned, is this all you're capable of? Has Deadpool Mansion run out of talent? You don't really think this little ability can have any effect on me, do you? But unexpectedly, Mary just smiled contemptuously. You don't actually think you've won, do you? Everything is proceeding according to my estimates. Just at this moment, a voice shouted from the street, Piao Xian, what are you doing? Do you know what you're doing right now? You shouldn't treat female students like this. How did you become like this? You're my son Haoxian's friend. I originally didn't believe it, but was it really you who hurt Haoxian? Sean hurriedly stood up to explain that it wasn't what she saw. But unexpectedly, Mary ran towards Haoxian's mom crying and sobbing. When Sean tried to step forward, he was stopped by Haoxian's mom's command. Stay where you are, don't come any closer. Receiving this order, Sean stood frozen, not moving forward at all. Mary spoke in a tearful voice, saying after taking Eugene back that day, they discovered he was covered in injuries. They originally didn't want to discuss this matter, but after being pressed, they learned it was all Piao Xian's doing. Haoxian's mom remembered the scene from that night. They had said they were just playing around. Was it all fake? Combined with what the principal had told her, it further confirmed this was the truth. Sean wanted to explain that all of this was just lies, it wasn't what she thought at all. But unexpectedly, Hoxian's mom stepped forward and slapped Sean hard across the face. Seeing this scene, Mary finally revealed a satisfied smile. Everything was done to make Sean return to Deadpool Mansion, make this mother lose her good impression of Sean, so she would voluntarily give up on him. Hoxian's mom shouted tearfully, "Don't call me mom anymore. From now on, we have no connection. Don't ever come back to my place again. You should go back to your own home." Then a familiar figure appeared behind them, the crisp sound of high heels bringing the plan to its final step. It was Aunt Ruikyu, disguised as Piao Xian's mother. With this, Piao Xian officially returned to Deadpool Mansion, becoming Sean, property of Deadpool Mansion. Well done, Mary, my dear child. This is all thanks to you. You are Deadpool Mansion's most excellent strategist. You flatter me, priest. I merely completed the task according to your wishes. The legendary Sean of Deadpool Mansion is finally coming back. Mary, you should come back too. Yes, I understand. Sean ultimately returned to Deadpool Mansion, and he was thoroughly disciplined by Aunt Riku. She ordered Sean to eat all sorts of strange foods, requiring him to swallow various odd flavors, including his most disliked spicy taste, a large bowl of fire chicken noodles with 2 packets of sauce. All this stemmed from the 3 laws. He now absolutely obeyed all of Deadpool Mansion's commands. Just then, a person in a wheelchair appeared behind them. This was Bingu, who had been beaten up by Sean. His legs and cervical vertebrae were all broken, and he could only control his electric wheelchair with his right hand. After being saved, he didn't rush to seek revenge, but chose to fund Ruikyu to help find Sean. This apartment was among the most high-end in the country. He would spare no expense to find Sean. But Ruikyu told Bingu, "Deadpool Mansion has reclaimed ownership of Sean. As repayment for your funding, we won't harm your son." These were the terms we agreed to, weren't they? Although Bingu respected the importance of negotiated deals, he wasn't satisfied with this. What he wanted to avenge wasn't just that child, but also the old woman from that small restaurant. However, as an instructor at the Deadpool Tower, Ruikyu had little emotional attachment to those people. Their life or death meant nothing to her, and she didn't want to intervene much. She only wanted Sean to return with her. That would be enough. Hearing these words, Sean was completely stunned, wondering what would happen to Hoxian's mother. Meanwhile, Hoxian's mother was still working hard to make a living. A foreigner suddenly appeared at the entrance of her snack shop. He stuttered in broken Korean, "I want to take away some fried snacks." Hoxian's mother gently told him to wait. "I'll make them ready for you soon." But while preparing the snacks, her mind wandered. She could never understand why Sean would do such a thing. They seemed like such good friends. Yet he tried to kill her son without any reason. Why did this happen? In her distraction, she accidentally cut her finger. The customer hurriedly came forward to check on her injury. This action also brought with it a terrifying killing intent. He raised his blade, ready to attack Hoxian's mother. But Hoxian's mother suddenly received a phone call. It was from the hospital saying that Huang Hoxian had opened his eyes. She initially rushed out toward the hospital saying, "Take as much as you want, it's free," completely unaware of the customer's motives. At the hospital, though, Huang Haoxian had opened his eyes. Due to his severe injuries and long period of unconsciousness, his brain wasn't fully alert. The doctors were trying their best to wake him up, calling out loudly hoping he could hear. Huang Haoxian weakly responded to the doctor's questions, fragments of memories slowly flashing through his mind. He only remembered shouting at his mother, yet she didn't get angry with him. Instead, she said it was her fault, and her hands full of calluses. It must have been hard, right? He had to apologize to her in person. Thinking of this, tears unconsciously welled up in his eyes. Unable to control the pain in his heart, he called out, "Mom, where are you?" At that moment, Haoxian's mother arrived at the hospital room door. She trembled as she approached her son, not caring about the blood flowing from her finger. Huang Haoxian held his mother's hand. "Mom, I'm sorry, you've had it tough all this time." However, at the doorway of the hospital room, the man had followed Haoxian's mother to the hospital and also notified Bingu by phone. They were all here, ready to catch everyone at once. On the other end of the phone, Bingu revealed a sinister expression saying, "Plans have changed, wait at the hospital for further notice." It turned out Bingu had arranged people to detain Ruikyu, while he himself had already escaped in a truck. They kidnapped Sean, and Sean couldn't use force without orders from the rules. Bingu's actual plan was to bring those two from the hospital, kill them in front of this kid, to see what tricks he could pull. Bingu found this very curious. This kid was so helpless without commands. What an interesting product. Isn't this like brainwashing? This gave him another idea. What if I go to Deadpool Tower and buy you, then give you orders, and then make you kill that smelly old lady at the snack shop? What a spectacular scene that would be. Don't give me that murderous look. Right now, you can't do anything without orders. Besides, I haven't even started yet. I'm going to tear that old lady and her son to pieces, right in front of you, and you'll just have to stand by and watch, unable to do anything. Haven't I told you? Next time, I will definitely kill them all. Don't worry, because after they're gone, you'll be next. At this moment in Sacred Heart Hospital, Haoxian's mother was peeling an apple, and and Huang Haxian noticed the wound on her hand. Parents everywhere are the same. When children ask about their injuries, they always say it's nothing. But even so, Huang Haxian still wanted to help his mother get bandages. The doctor had said he could move around a bit. Seeing her child so insistent, Haxian's mother could only say she would go get it herself. Don't come down. After she walked outside the room, it was completely dark. There wasn't a single person at the nurse's station. And behind her, a shadow silently appeared. He knocked Haxian's mother unconscious with his elbow. This person was Mr. Wu, Quan Bingu's secretary, with an evil smile. It seems this kid really can't do anything. The door of the hospital room burst open with a crash. More than a dozen men in suits walked in with Quan Bingu, who told Huang Haxian he was Joseph's father, he had done some terrible things to you, and he was deeply sorry. You must be in pain, right? But I am very efficient in what I do, making things so complicated and yet you still survived, having to do this a second time. Meanwhile, on the other side, Ruikyu was fully armed on the building opposite the hospital. Quan Bingu didn't want to get too entangled with Ruikyu, ordering everyone to get them in the car. The others just needed to hold her back. But Ruikyu wasn't one to be trifled with. She wouldn't simply let them get away. Even with her injured arm, she persisted in fighting. Secretary Wu blocked away and snapped his fingers. Dozens of men immediately surrounded them, each equipped with sophisticated weapons. Ruikyu stated, "Since things have come to this, I don't need to hold back anymore." Holding 2 machine guns, Ruikyu was like a war goddess. Unexpectedly, Secretary Wu laughed at this. His hand wasn't really in a cast, there was a gun hidden inside. It was meant to deceive people, catch them off guard. Next time I won't aim at your leg, but at your head. At that moment, Sean broke free from his restraints and untied the rope. The dazed Secretary Wu was confused. "What's going on?" Sean calmly explained. "Have you forgotten? I'm now a member of Deadpool Tower. You just said you would aim at her head, threatening to kill an instructor of Deadpool Tower? This is the 3rd rule. Those who target Deadpool Tower will be considered a threat, and I will take action to resolve what happens next due to the threat. Special Cultivated Composite Weapon, Legend of Deadpool Tower, codename Sean, current affiliation Deadpool Tower." When he heard someone threaten to kill Ruikyu, Sean completely unsealed himself, activating the 3rd of Deadpool Tower's 3 great rules. Others thought he was just an inexperienced kid, but Sean directly grabbed the man's hand. An angry punch sent his teeth flying. The man was completely stunned. How could such a small kid have so much strength? Sean landed punch after punch on the man's forehead, showing no mercy despite his pleas. Ruikyu was also taking action. Now Sean had no parents giving him orders. He didn't need to protect anyone. The reason Sean could fight, could it be purely out of feelings for me? That's why he's going on a rampage, just to protect me. Although Sean's combat ability was strong, the opponents were numerous and all armed. She needed to find something that would be advantageous for fighting. He turned and saw many syringes. He flipped sideways, but they thought this little brat was trying to run away out of fear. However, in that instant, the syringes appeared before his eyes. The man couldn't dodge in time and was pierced in the eye. Sean removed all the protective caps from the syringes. "Now, I'll give everyone their vaccinations." Everyone froze in place, shocked by this little brat's combat ability. He was only in his teens. How could he have the strength to deal with adults? At that moment, a man holding a chainsaw shouted from behind to get out of the way. "Let me deal with him. I'll split you in half right away, you little punk." Sean was dumbfounded. How did a chainsaw maniac suddenly appear? He found a hospital bed around the corner. The man with the chainsaw pursued closely. Sean kicked the bed towards the man, who hadn't reacted in time. This move almost cost Sean his own life. Suddenly, Sean thought of an interesting idea. He tied the man to the hospital bed, securing his hands and the chainsaw. "You like playing with chainsaws, huh? Come on. I'll let you all play together. Here comes the chainsaw chariot." "How come you're done so soon?" "I wasn't finished playing yet." The chainsaw was smoking hot. The man's hands were burned red. Sean picked up a syringe and questioned him. "Where did you take Huang Haxian's mother?" At this time, Ruikyu came over. "Looks like you're finished here too," Sean said. "Because I hit them too hard, most people were scared and ran away. And that Quan Bingu took away Auntie Haxian. Let's quickly prepare to chase after them." Ruikyu disagreed with this. "We're not fighting for that woman. These people kidnapped you, and you are Deadpool Tower's property. So I came to this place purely to rescue you, and you as part of Deadpool Tower used your power to protect me, didn't you? Now you're safe and sound, and you've eliminated the enemy. The mission is over. It's time to return to Deadpool Tower." Sean picked up a bandage. "I think you've misunderstood my purpose. Everything I did was for you. As you said, I used my ability to protect you. Not for others, just because of you. They mess with our discipline. I can't let them get away with it. This kind of risk factor cannot be ignored. We must go and annihilate them, let them see what happens to those who dare to mess with Deadpool Tower. Anyway, let's quickly go together." Ruikyu, with a coy and charming expression, "My dear Sean is indeed the best, to go this far for me." Sean wore a sinister expression. Looks like the flattery towards Auntie Ruikyu had worked. This way he could go save the mother and son. After the crisp sound of machine guns loading, Let's go crush them all together. On the other side, Hoxian's mother had woken up from unconsciousness, and in front of her was Bingu. She was startled by his sinister expression. She was clearly at the hospital. How did she suddenly come here? Bingu coldly said, "Calm down. Although I know this is somewhat rude, but I had to do it this way. Take a good look around. This is our children's classroom. I hear the seat you're sitting in now is Huang Hoxian's. This desk looks terrible, right? I'm also surprised. Speaking like this, you might not recognize me. Can you recognize me now? I am Joseph's father. My face is horrifying, right? All of this was caused by that guy, Piao Xian. He has another name, Sean. It's all because of him. My son and I are also victims. He did this to us, and then Piao Xian blamed Joseph for what happened to Huang Hoxian. This has spread throughout the school. All the students know about it. We were too indifferent to our children. This is our dereliction of duty. I will take revenge. I couldn't protect my own son. This is my sin. As parents, we must atone for our sons. Even though I know we should take legal action, but that won't do any good. I used to think the law would make a fair judgment, but the school and police did nothing. Your son jumped from this window. We can't let these people do whatever they want. If we let them get away with this, they will never stop bullying. We must stand up to stop this. Do you understand what I mean? Mother Hoxian, now it's time for us to take revenge. We can't let him go." Meanwhile, at the Deadpool Tower mansion, a man in black came to report to the father, saying he heard and saw that people from the Bingu construction group had kidnapped Sean. The father was furious. How dare an organization with no roots in H country lay hands on Sean without knowing anything? Not long after, at Yanhei Middle School, Sean, Ruikyu, Mary, and Eugene all gathered at this place. They received orders from the father: anyone who dares touch Deadpool Tower's property must pay the price. And Sean, this is your first mission executing Deadpool's tasks. Feel free to show them your abilities, don't hold back. Ruikyu, eliminating heresy is your primary goal this time. Go ahead boldly, I will have the White Tiger Human Resources Department cover up all information. Suddenly, Sean pointed to his ear. "I seem to have forgotten my in-ear headphones at the hospital. Do you have any spares? Mary, do you have any others? Lend me one." Sean, you're really careless, acting like a silly child. Hard to imagine someone like you could become a legendary figure. I'm disappointed. You're acting like an amateur. It's really exasperating. After a round of mockery, Sean could only play dumb. Is this really the place? This is clearly my school. Mary indicated that according to the tracking results from surrounding traffic cameras, they could confirm they were here. Ruikyu looked at the impatient Sean, doubts arising in her mind. "Sean, our mission is to annihilate the enemy. You're not planning to do something foolish, are you?" Sean twisted his wrist, saying he certainly knew. Regardless of the outcome, what he needed to do was destroy them all. However, all their actions were recorded under surveillance. When I first heard about this, I also thought it was impossible. The target was actually Deadpool Tower. That's the Deadpool instructor Ruikyu, right? If there's no additional payment, this will be difficult to handle. What do you think? What about those kids? Are they all assassins too? No, they're mercenaries like us. Don't underestimate them. Children from Deadpool Tower are not to be taken lightly. At this moment, Bingu came in through the main gate, claiming he would pay additional compensation. As long as they killed them all, he could satisfy whatever amount they wanted. "Shouldn't there be 3 people? Why are there only 2 of you?" the taller man stated. His brother would come later, but even if he didn't come, the 2 of them would be more than enough. Don't think they're not ordinary children and underestimate us. Aren't we 2 enough to handle a few kids in your eyes? The long-haired youth mediated. "Dimitri, don't act so fierce. You're scaring him. Sorry. We won't harm our own clients." Although he looks carefree, he's really professional. On the other side, Sean and the others searched for the mother and son along the stairs. Strangely, the school was terrifyingly quiet, without any sound of people. Mary also found it strange. Hacking into the school's network revealed all surveillance cameras were broken. Eugene suggested, "We can split up to search. Even if we encounter enemies, they're all amateurs. They won't pose much threat." Ruikyu agreed with Eugene's point. "Then let's split up. If anything happens, we each have radios. We can notify others." However, one person didn't bring one. There was no choice. Sean could only search together with Ruikyu. Mary and Eugene went to the security room to check the CCTV and other floor situations. Sean was excited. "Come out quickly, you thugs. I'll teach you a lesson." But Ruikyu saw through Sean's abnormality. "Haven't you given up on that old lady and her son yet? Why do you care so much about them? Give up them. The more you care about their situation, the more dangerous it will be. Think about it. They're just ordinary people. In just a few days, they became targets of Deadpool Tower. And now they've been kidnapped by those idiots. Haven't you considered why all this is happening? The answer is simple. If you weren't around, this family would continue their ordinary and happy life because of your intervention. Their lives changed. The shadow of Deadpool Tower followed you into their lives. From then on, their ordinary life began to fall apart. Everything that happened is because of you, don't you understand?" Hearing these words, Sean felt like he had received terrible news. He had never thought that all of this was caused by his identity as a member of Deadpool Tower with serious consequences. Suddenly, Sean sensed a dangerous signal. A general feeling passed by their faces. Ruikyu turned to look. This was actually someone she knew. Dmitry Medvedev, second in command of the Our Country mercenaries. Dmitry said, "It's been 2 years since Vladivostok. How have you been, Ruikyu? This child is called Mary, right? I saw her wandering around everywhere, so I just wanted to have some fun. Who knew she was so useless? Don't glare at me like that. This time my target is your Deadpool tower. No matter how much I like you, a mission is a mission. Even you can't intervene. Don't point your gun at me. Let's all stay calm. After all, we're professionals, aren't we? If you agree to go on a date with me, I might give up this mission and not harm these children." Ruikyu exploded with anger, pulling out her machine gun from her waist. After the smoke cleared, there was no trace of Dmitry. Dmitry, hiding in the corner, sighed with appreciation. "You're really a feisty woman, but I like that. Killing you would be a waste. Maybe putting a few bullets in you would make you more docile." Sean, hiding by the wall, said, "With your skills, you might be able to take her down, but you shouldn't have said those words. Threatening Deadpool Tower's instructor is the biggest mistake you could make in your life." "Not bad at all, young man. You're different from that girl, aren't you? You're impressive. I'm getting more excited. Don't die halfway through. The Our Country mercenary group has a cruel initiation ritual. One must enter the harsh Siberian wilderness bare-chested and successfully capture prey. Only then do they qualify to join the organization. Once there was a man who took down a Siberian brown bear with his bare hands, and because of this, he became second in command within the group. He was Dmitry Medvedev, a complete battle maniac. When Sean's punch made his nose bleed, instead of feeling frustrated, he became extremely excited. He thought this inexperienced kid really had some skills, but compared to a Siberian brown bear, he was still a bit lacking. Suddenly, Dmitry discovered the magazine of his gun had been removed. It turned out that when Sean landed that punch, he had seized the opportunity. However, Dmitry wasn't surprised, instead becoming more excited. Sean painfully wiped the blood from his cheek. Looking at their physical structure, the difference was truly too great, and he was still armed, making the situation somewhat tricky. After a gunshot, Riku shattered the gun in Dmitry's hand. No one expected that such a large build could possess such agile movement ability. Even Riku, skilled in shooting, couldn't hit Dmitry. At this moment, Quan Bingu's underlings also came running to help. After Riku took cover in a room, she found Mary, who had regained consciousness. She trembled as she knelt on the ground, looking somewhat nervous. Because she had checked the previous CCTV footage, she discovered it wasn't just that one man. They had another accomplice, over by Eugene. Now they were completely surrounded, and with Dmitry here, it was impossible to break through and rescue Eugene from his predicament. At this point, Sean stepped forward, telling Riku and Mary to go to Eugene. With another person like this, he would be in danger. As for this big guy, just leave him to me. I must make him pay for that punch he gave me earlier. Riku was still worried about him, because Dmitry wasn't a man to be underestimated, but Sean still insisted on this decision, saying he was enough to handle him. "Just don't forget that I am the legend of Deadpool Tower." Only then did Riku agree to Sean's decision. He protected Mary as they fought their way back. Sean was somewhat dazed by this punch. Though he had blocked these attacks, he found his arm was bleeding repeatedly. Looking back, Dmitry was holding the dismantled gun. He had used the sharp gun barrel to stab Sean's arm. In a life-or-death struggle, there's no such thing as playing dirty. As long as you win, what does it matter if it looks unsavory? At this moment, Sean managed to grab 2 pens. "If that's how it is, I'll let you taste the same medicine." Dmitry smiled slightly. "Good kid, you've got guts. You didn't back down. I admire your courage, but you asked for this." Dmitry looked at the 2 pens stuck in his arm. "This kid has quite a vengeful streak. But don't think that because I let my guard down slightly, you can match me in battle." Sean was breathing heavily. This guy's strength was truly formidable, and his speed had increased to another level. He took off his clothes and threw them at Dmitry, taking advantage of this interval to retreat temporarily. He ran into the principal's office. Dmitry was indeed, as Auntie Ruikyu said, definitely not an ordinary person. His left arm was still numb. He had to find a way to stop the bleeding first. He stared at the mirror in front of him, lost in thought, remembering what Riku had told him. "It's all because of you they were tracked here, and their lives fell apart. Everything was because of you. It's all your fault. Do you understand it all?" Sean was very frustrated about this. His eyes began to become hollow, and at the same time, Dmitry kicked open the door and came in. "It seems Auntie Ruikyu wasn't wrong at all. If it wasn't for me, a mercenary like you wouldn't have come here either. The Huang Haoxian family wouldn't be in danger. This is probably all my fault now. I must resolve all of this to live up to this tattoo on my back." Dmitry also sensed something different. This kid has become quite different now. You say your name is Sean, right? I seem to remember a little bit now. 2 years ago, I heard Ruikyu mention you. She said you were the legend of Deadpool Tower, but I didn't believe it. Now I do. Before this in Vladivostok, Dmitri received a mission. At that time, they offered a very high payment. The ones he had to escort turned out to be a bunch of kids. Ruikyu also emphasized many times, they weren't ordinary children, they were Deadpool Tower's good children and very excellent products. Ruikyu urged the children to get in the car quickly. It was about to explode. Dmitri listened with a confused look. What the hell was about to explode? Before he could finish speaking, a huge explosion occurred in a building behind them. Are you crazy? Were all those bombs in that building you're doing? Ruikyu stated she was just a disciplined instructor. Those were all the children's masterpieces. Looks like these children had quite a productive field trip today. But David, I noticed you put too many grenades. Remember to pay attention next time, and also remember to maintain your gun habits. This is a professional's virtue. Amy, be calmer when acting. Your speech seemed a bit awkward, Tom. I could still hear your footsteps when you were sneaking around. Remember to be lighter next time, understand? Finally, lady, who told you to pick up candy in the conference room? Have you thought about the consequences if you leave traces that shouldn't be left? Dmitri laughed heartily, making it sound like these kids really blew up a building. Auntie Ruikyu very seriously restated, they're not ordinary children, they're Deadpool Tower's good children. Also, hold off on smoking for now. There are children in the car. It's not good for their health. As the second in command of the mercenaries, you don't seem to be well informed. You seem to have no concept at all about our Deadpool Tower. Dmitri stared at Ruikyu in a daze. This angelic face with a devil's body, who wouldn't be captivated? Even so, Dmitri noticed something subtle. He noticed the scar on Ruikyu's forehead. How did such a beautiful face get that? Surely it wasn't caused by these little brats behind her? Ruikyu touched the scar on her forehead, thinking for a long while before slowly speaking. This was caused when I was disciplining Sean, the legend of Deadpool Tower. The most perfect masterpiece to date. To be precise, he has another name, called Masterpiece, an outstanding genius. But now we've lost him. Don't know if he's still alive or not. If you see him, remember to let me know. One with Ultra No. Tattooed on his back. Looks like you really found him back, Ruikyu. I can't deny you're not an ordinary child. I acknowledge your strength. From now on, let's resolve this like men. The second in command of the Barefoot Mercenaries, nicknamed Grizzly. A heart-piercing strike caught Sean off guard. Now his ribs were broken. Dmitri wouldn't give Sean any chance to breathe, charging forward with his blade. Though I head-butted his chin and caused damage, he still acted like nothing happened. His physical condition was extraordinarily strong. Dmitri was dumbfounded. This guy actually turned trophies into weapons. Sean raised his right hand and coldly said, "Let this be your souvenir from coming to H country. Although you're strong, I won't show mercy because of your strength." Just as he was about to go look for Ruikyu, he noticed a familiar-looking photo on the principal's office desk. When he picked up the photo to look at it, Dmitri had already arrived at the principal's office. The boy never expected. When he stabbed the sharp object into the man's neck, not only did he not die, but grabbed a golf club and attacked him. Sean was stunned. Normally that position was the carotid artery, he shouldn't be able to move. Yet he was swinging the golf club like a dragon come alive. At this point, Dmitri finally stopped breathing. Then he looked toward the principal's desk. How could his photo be here? What was going on? On the other side, Eugene arrived at a swimming pool. Just as he was checking the pool's condition, the long-haired youth suddenly appeared beside him. Eugene stumbled backward in fear. This man wasn't ordinary. He had appeared beside him without making any sound. Eugene quickly called Ruikyu on the radio. Who would have thought the man had set up jammers, making the radio completely useless? Then Eugene began to cry, disguising himself as a harmless little kid, trying to make the man lower his guard. But a baseball bat came flying rapidly towards Eugene. The man showed no mercy in this situation, and Eugene's disguise had no effect. The man said he hadn't done anything yet, and you're already crying. That's funny. Such poor acting skills. Too clumsy. Really makes me want to hit you until you actually cry. Wonder how long your small frame can endure. Hope my fun won't end too quickly. Eugene was stunned. Where did this destructive power come from? He and this man weren't even on the same level. The man showed no intention of stopping, still swinging the baseball bat at Eugene. But the previous attack had damaged Eugene's bones, making him unable to support his body as he fell. Eugene took this chance to flip over the railing, accidentally falling on the stairs. The man looked at the pitiful little brat, saying he'd give him 10 seconds. Run as far as you can to give me some sense of hunting. Eugene didn't hesitate at all. Stumbling and running for his life, he knew clearly. This wasn't someone who could be dealt with easily. However, his injured foot wouldn't let him get his wish. The man quickly followed behind. Although the blade blocked the direct impact of the baseball bat, the force still made Eugene's arms ache terribly. In his daze, he recalled, was he really a useless child? Before they set out, he had been mocked mercilessly by Sean. But even so, Eugene still couldn't understand. Why would you still want to save Auntie Hoxian when she treated you like that? She had already abandoned you, no longer acknowledging you as her family, yet you still want to save her? He had told me then, even though I haven't proven any indispensability, she still called me family. This is really puzzling. Could it be that the education I received from childhood was different in her eyes? Sean didn't know how to explain to Eugene. He squatted down and asked him, "What do you think?" Eugene recalled all the previous events. He himself couldn't figure out why either. The concept of family he spoke of was completely different from what he had experienced. Sean patted Eugene's head. "She told me to bring Eugene back next time Auntie Hoxian would cook something delicious for him. Why don't you ask her yourself then?" Eugene, sinking in the water, was somewhat confused. What exactly is family? Eurus on the shore found it strange. Does this kid really not know how to swim? If that's the case, I'll let you fend for yourself. Anyway, you can't get back to shore. Just as he was relaxing his guard and preparing to leave, Eugene quickly swam to the pool's edge, grabbed his ankle and kicked with both feet, the movements flowing like water in one go. In an instant pulled Eurus into the pool, then silently appeared behind him, using his positional advantage to apply a rear naked choke. Even so, Eugene still very much wanted to prove his worth, because he always believed that capable children would be welcome anywhere. The continuous choking sensation made Eurus somewhat panicked, struggling constantly in the water. At this moment he used the baseball bat to directly hit Eugene's elbow. The intense pain made Eugene release his hands. This little brat actually made him so embarrassed, he would make him die with broken bones. Because of being in water, Eurus's speed was much less than before, but who would have thought he would stand on the lane line? These were plastic injection-molded buoys. The only sense of balance made people even more fearful. The man leaped up. His fighting speed was no less than on land. Looking back, he had arrived at another buoy. In this situation, it was impossible to surface, but the problem was, Eugene couldn't stay underwater forever. Eugene, his face red from holding his breath, quickly swam in another direction. However, Eurus's movement ability on the buoys was as free as on land. At this rate, Eugene would either suffocate underwater or surface and get his head smashed. If he dared to stick his head out of the water to breathe, that baseball bat with such force would quickly make his head burst open. Suddenly, he saw that the buoys were all connected by a line in the middle. He thought of a plan, quickly heading to the bottom of the pool. Eurus quickly followed, but Eugene's goal wasn't to escape, but to pick up the blade that had fallen to the pool bottom. He immediately cut the rope connecting the buoys. Without the rope, the buoys were like scattered sand, making it impossible for Eurus to stand on the buoys. This made him grind his teeth in anger. This kid had some tricks. However, when he swung the baseball bat in the water, the density of water was much greater than air. This kind of large and clumsy weapon was hard to swing. Instead, his small blade was more threatening. To avoid the blade, Eurus could only move downward. But who would have thought that Eugene would be holding the buoy's rope? When diving, he instantly locked his throat. At this point, Eurus completely stopped breathing. He had underestimated Eugene, paying a heavy price. On the other side, Riku was protecting the injured Mary while fighting and retreating. However, because of her thigh, she couldn't completely shake off Quan Bingu's pursuers. Mary was embarrassed. The escalation of the situation had exceeded everyone's expectations. Shouldn't they retreat first? But Riku stated, having accepted the father's orders, that means completely annihilating them. And Sean is dealing with Dimitri. We just need to take care of ourselves. But now there's only one magazine of bullets left. Need to think about how to handle what comes next. Mary looked at the intelligence on her phone. Dimitri and Yuri are both beyond our control. Need to see if we can find other support. However, Ruikyu loaded her weapon, asking, "Didn't you say earlier you couldn't see clearly who that person was? How do you know the other person is Yuri?" Mary froze, then let out a sinister laugh. "Looks like my carelessness let you discover it." Ruikyu aimed at her head. "How is this possible? You should still be under Deadpool Tower's control. How can you betray the organization? Answer me, Mary. This is an order." Mary examined the necklace on her chest. "Auntie Ruikyu, we found that thing. Deadpool Tower's 3 great rules. The method to break it, making the impossible possible. He's back." Ruikyu widened her eyes in disbelief. What was she talking about? Mary immediately rushed forward and removed the magazine. At this moment, Ruikyu had a gun pressed against the back of her head. When Ruikyu tried to resist, she was immediately pinned to the ground. Then Mary showed her lovable appearance again. "Looks like you've waited a long time. Everything here has been handled. Next is just to catch Sean and we're done." On the other side, Hoxian's mother gripped the knife, her body trembling uncontrollably. Just as Quan Bingu thought he had convinced her, she threw the knife away and shouted, "Joseph's father! Someone like you doesn't deserve to be a parent!" Quan Bingu fired back without hesitation. "Is that so? You won't accept the settlement money, and you won't take revenge either. A person who just makes rice cakes even after her son is disabled. Does that make you qualified to be a mother?" Before he finished speaking, Hoxian's mother slapped him across the face. Quan Bingu pulled out a handkerchief and wiped his face. "I thought this would be simple, but you're quite troublesome." With that, a group of subordinates burst through the door, stepping closer to Hoxian's mother. Meanwhile, Piao Xian tucked his photo into his pocket and walked out of the office unhurriedly. As he walked, he pondered, how did Bingu Construction manage to contact those hard-to-reach mercenaries from L country? At this thought, he suddenly realized something was wrong, and rushed urgently to support Ruikyu. Halfway there, he ran into Quan Bingyu's men. Both sides immediately opened fire. With the situation urgent, Piao Xian decided to end this quickly. Unexpectedly, one of them pulled out a gun, but he showed no fear, rushing like lightning to the gunman, and using his elbow to knock the gun barrel upward, making the opponent instantly lose their advantage. He then knocked them down with one punch. In the surveillance room, Ruikyu regained consciousness. Seeing Mary sitting leisurely in the office chair, she cursed furiously, "You damn woman, how dare you betray us!" Mary told her to calm down and explained her reasons. She hadn't betrayed Deadpool Tower, she just wanted everyone to know who the true masterpiece was. She recalled how the director once told her as a child that Deadpool Tower's greatest masterpiece and legend was Sean, and that he had achieved this status very early on. At this thought, she gripped her cup tightly, grinding her teeth. I don't understand why he's so obsessed with an old relic, so I was curious just how remarkable Sean really was. But after meeting him, I found he was just a thoroughly stupid brat. That's when I understood that legends are just illusions of the past. She crouched down in front of Ruikyu, gently stroking her face. The director just wanted to cover up his mistake of losing Sean, so he packaged him as a myth. She slowly stood up, so I'll demonstrate it to the director myself. Mary rolled up her sleeve, revealing a number 2 tattoo on her arm. I'll let him know who Deadpool Tower's true masterpiece really is. At this moment, Ruikyu noticed Piao Xian's figure appearing on one of the surveillance screens. The next second, that screen turned to static. He had destroyed the camera. Ruikyu chuckled, saying with double meaning, that little guy from back then has become quite cunning now. She leaned back lazily. Sounds like you're just throwing a tantrum because the director only likes Sean. She then proceeded to mock Mary. Mary turned around, trying to appear calm, but was ultimately angered by Ruikyu's next words. How dare a half-finished product speak so arrogantly here? Mary quickly pulled out a handgun from her bag. The next second, the bullet grazed Ruikyu's cheek and embedded into the wall behind her. Mary's eyes turned cold. I'm warning you, Ruikyu. I have the ability to hurt you. She pressed the gun against Ruikyu's head, warning her not to speak carelessly again. At this tense moment, Quan Bingu appeared and interrupted them. He indicated that everything was taken care of. Haoxian's mother was now unconscious in the classroom, and Huang Haoxian had been taken to the rooftop by his men. When Quan Bingu asked Mary about the next step, Secretary Wu behind him suddenly covered his mouth and nose with a chloroform-soaked handkerchief. The drug took effect quickly. His body went limp and his eyes glazed over, yet he still managed to ask with his remaining strength, "What is this?" Mary leaned close to his ear and whispered, "You've outlived your usefulness. But as compensation, I'll make you the protagonist of this entire incident. A father takes violent revenge for his son? Sounds pretty good, doesn't it?" With that, she turned to look at the surveillance, wanting to confirm Piao Xian's location, only to find all the screens had turned to static. Just as she was puzzled, Ruikyu beside her spoke. Children from Deadpool Tower always have exceptional talents in certain areas. We call these children masterpieces and give them code names. Like you, Mary. Your code name is 2, representing the masterpiece of intelligence. As for Sean, he's the greatest masterpiece possessing all of your talents combined. As soon as she finished speaking, the lights went out, plunging the room into darkness. Then, Piao Xian burst through the ceiling, shattering the glasses-wearing man's skull with an elbow strike. Upon seeing Piao Xian, Ruikyu wanted to complain to him, but he indicated he already knew everything. He decided to teach Mary a harsh lesson first. Mary quietly drew her concealed weapon, and suddenly attacked Piao Xian. Piao Xian barely dodged the strike, but was shocked. Could she no longer be controlled by the 3 principles? At this thought, he stopped holding back out of comradeship and knocked Mary's glasses off with an elbow strike. But Mary took the opportunity to hook his neck and threw him to the ground. Ruikyu, watching from the side, was stunned. This wasn't a technique taught by Deadpool Tower. Seeing Mary flee through the door, Ruikyu immediately urged Piao Xian to chase after Mary. She suspected Mary must have someone pulling the strings behind her. Piao Xian immediately pursued Mary, though he still couldn't fully understand the situation. One thing was very clear to him: whether it was Mary or whoever was behind her, one of them must know how to break free from the 3 principles' control. He followed Mary all the way to the science classroom. She suddenly turned around wearing a gas mask and holding chemical reagents. The next second, she smashed the test tube to the ground. Sodium, red phosphorus, and ammonia mixed and exploded, producing toxic gas. Piao Xian quickly covered his nose, wanting to escape the classroom, but Mary blocked his path. To dodge her attacks, he had to release his hand from covering his nose, accidentally inhaling several breaths of toxic gas and losing his guard momentarily. Mary quickly seized this opening, slashing forward with her blade and cutting his arm. Then with an elbow strike, she precisely hit the area where Dmitri had injured him before. Piao Xian tried to grab the equipment rack on the nearby table as a weapon, but Mary kicked the table away. She had already figured out Piao Xian's habits. Whenever he was in a disadvantageous situation, he habitually made active use of objects around him. Then she grabbed the globe from the table and smashed it hard against the wound on Piao Xian's Xian's arm. In an instant, the wound split open and blood splattered. Mary seemed intent on finishing him off, throwing test tubes containing 3 chemicals at Piao Xian. The chemicals exploded in front of him. He quickly removed his burning coat and threw it at Mary, then rapidly escaped the classroom. Mary didn't pursue further, because the floor was already covered with his blood. Piao Xian, dragging his bleeding arm, hid in the library. Due to excessive blood loss, he gradually began losing his balance. Even worse, Mary had already tracked him here. Looking at the blood-stained stairs leading to the second floor, she laughed softly. "You're still alive, aren't you?" At this moment, Piao Xian was hiding behind a bookshelf. Mary walked upstairs unhurriedly. When she saw the blood trail turn at a bookshelf, she sprinted and then stopped sharply, flashing to behind the bookshelf, only to find a pool of blood on the ground with a small stapler beside it. She crouched down to investigate more carefully, but Piao Xian suddenly appeared behind her. She quickly stabbed backward, but he blocked it with a book. Only then did Mary notice that Piao Xian had roughly stapled his wound shut. The next second, he punched her in the face, sending her flying like a bullet. Piao Xian grabbed her face and demanded in a deep voice, "Do you know a way to break the 3 principles?" Mary found his question laughable. "You mean the 3 principles that only stupid children would be brainwashed by?" She didn't answer his question, but instead told Piao Xian a story. The only time she was adopted was by a middle-aged couple. Due to her exceptional intelligence from a young age, she often helped her mother correct theoretical errors in her papers. Whenever that happened, her mother would affectionately pinch her little cheeks and praise her as her little lucky star. But these warm days didn't last long. One day, she brought coffee to her mother as usual and pointed out errors in her paper as usual. But this time, her mother didn't praise her as usual. Instead, she got up and went upstairs to rest. Then her father also said he was going out. She waited obediently for her mother to wake up and thoughtfully organized her materials. Her mother glanced at her expressionlessly, then asked where her father had gone. But she said she didn't know, so her mother casually told her to find out where her father went next time. She took this seriously and uncovered the truth. Her father was having an affair with a 28-year-old woman and had gone out precisely to meet this woman at a motel. However, before she could finish reporting, her mother sharply interrupted her and picked up her coffee, wanting to stay alert. Seeing this, she reminded, "Mom, coffee isn't good for you. I estimate you're already severely fatigued. Plus, judging from your complexion and recent lifestyle patterns, your hormonal imbalance may persist for quite some time. Therefore, you need to rest." However, before she finished, her mother angrily slapped her. She covered her face helplessly, only to hear her mother say, "You think you're the best, the smartest, don't you? Do you think I'm stupider than you? Don't be ridiculous. No one can replace me." And then naturally she was returned. She thought the director would blame her, but surprisingly, he just gently patted her head and told her that some people just feel uncomfortable around those better than themselves. He praised her as Deadpool Tower's smartest good child and asked her to stay and use her talents to help Deadpool Tower. Getting to this point in her story, she glared at Piao Xian resentfully. "But then you appeared again, Sean." Piao Xian felt baffled. What did this have to do with breaking the 3 principles? He urged Mary to tell him the method quickly, but Mary bit down on his tiger's mouth. Piao Xian winced in pain and tried to punch her, but she blocked with her foot. "Thanks to you, I've rested enough." With that, she grabbed the finger blade from the ground and thrust forward fiercely. Piao Xian quickly retreated, suddenly realizing Mary had just been stalling for time with her story. Mary pulled off her hair tie, her eyes suddenly sharp. Then like an arrow, she instantly charged at Piao Xian. In just a few seconds, she launched multiple strikes at him, her speed completely different from before, and Piao Xian, distracted for just a brief moment, let Mary find an opening. She swept his legs out from under him, quickly thrusting her blade forward. He habitually used a book to block, but Mary's force this time was several times stronger than before, and he barely managed to deflect this move. Mary grabbed a nearby bookshelf and pulled hard toward Piao Xian's position. The bookshelf crashed down heavily, but fortunately Piao Xian dodged in time. Mary stepped onto the fallen bookshelf and asked, "Haven't you ever thought, even though we've been training since childhood, it shouldn't be possible to beat professional adult soldiers, right? You must have felt it too, haven't you?" She put her hand near her head. "There's something here that goes bang." Piao Xian asked what nonsense she was spouting. Mary was instantly speechless. "I've said this much and you still don't understand?" Piao Xian suddenly realized something, but Mary pursued him relentlessly, which annoyed him greatly. At this moment, he inadvertently glimpsed a wooden chair behind him and immediately came up with a plan. He first blocked one of Mary's attacks, and when she thought she was the victor, he grabbed the wooden chair and smashed it at Mary. Then he punched through the railing glass, picked up a shard, and executed his final move, Alexander Kali Arnis. This was a dangerous technique taught to him by his instructor as a child, to be used when holding weapons in both hands, capable of cornering an opponent. Mary naturally recognized this move, but it was too late. Piao Xian quickly took her down. She then fell heavily to the ground, blood splattering everywhere. However, Piao Xian didn't deliver the final fatal blow. He was ultimately soft-hearted and spared her, hoisting Mary up and heading out, but he didn't hear her weak utterance of director. On the other side, inside Deadpool Tower, corpses were strewn everywhere. A strange man stood by the window holding a long blade, with an L country language tattoo of 0 on the back of his hand. Behind him knelt a man with a long wound on his back, none other than the director of Deadpool Tower. Meanwhile, on the rooftop, the sky was overcast as if it might rain. Bingu's subordinates were complaining about how long they had to wait. They had a heated discussion about whether to throw Huang Haoxian off the building now. At this time, a large subordinate crouched beside Huang Haoxian and said ominously, "So you heard everything?" With that, he dragged Huang Haoxian toward the edge of the rooftop and threw him onto the protective wire mesh with a clang. Huang Haoxian looked down, and memories of his previous fall immediately flooded his mind. Fear and terror swept through his heart like the thunderstorm at that moment. His stomach churned and he vomited on the spot, accompanied by the sounds of thunder and rain mixed with the subordinates' curses. Suddenly, Eugene appeared like a ghost and asked, "Are you Huang Haoxian?" Huang Haoxian looked at this strange child, confused. "Who are you?" If I had to say, Eugene twirled the knife in his hand, answering loudly, "I'm someone who's about to become a regular at Haoxian's snack shop." The subordinates immediately realized this child was sent by Deadpool Tower. However, just as they assumed defensive postures, Eugene flashed past them, slicing their arms and thighs. Huang Haoxian was stunned by this scene. How could there be such a child? At this moment, he saw the man standing in front of him pulling out a handgun from his pocket. He thought this was bad, that child is in danger, I must think of something. But it's a gun. What could he possibly do? He couldn't help but blame himself for always being so useless, unable to help with anything. Meanwhile, the man shot and hit Eugene's right foot. Eugene immediately stumbled and was about to fall. Just as the man was about to pull the trigger again, Huang Haoxian suddenly knocked him down while shouting, "Who dares say I'm useless?" With that, he bit down hard on the man's ear. Seeing that no matter how he struggled, he couldn't shake off the boy on top of him, the man angrily pressed the gun to his head. "I'll kill you first!" Just as he was about to pull the trigger, Eugene kicked the gun away. Eugene turned to look at Huang Haoxian and smiled slightly. "You're somewhat useful after all." Meanwhile, in the car outside the school building, Mary slowly regained consciousness. Seeing her wake, Ruikyu said indifferently, "It would be troublesome for me if you died." Mary asked where Sean was. "He should be going to find that old woman and her son now." With that, Ruikyu opened a wooden box, pulled out a syringe and injected it into Mary's body. "Now it's my turn to ask questions." Seeing Mary's nervous expression, she reassured, "This is just a truth serum." With that, she suddenly grabbed Mary's hair, her gaze cold. "You damn brat, what are you plotting behind the scenes?" Mary casually revealed a shocking plan, just planning to destroy about half of Deadpool Tower, together with Zero. Ruikyu's pupils dilated suddenly upon hearing this. "Zero is really still alive?" Mary answered leisurely. "He said he left a scar on your forehead and didn't even get to properly apologize before leaving, hidden away by all of you. Deadpool Tower's true legend. Zero is alive." Ruikyu. Meanwhile, Piao Xian arrived outside Huang Haoxian's classroom. His eyes inadvertently glanced over, and he saw Haoxian's mother slumped over a desk in the classroom. Seeing her body still trembling unconsciously, he was relieved she was still alive while reaching for the door handle to rescue her. But he suddenly stopped. He remembered Haoxian's mother's hateful gaze back then, and Ruikyu's cruel, heart-piercing words. At this thought, he lowered his head dejectedly, the light gone from his eyes. Eugene found him at just the right time. "Sean, there you are. You look super roughed up." Piao Xian looked up, about to show concern, but was shocked to see Huang Haoxian following behind Eugene. Seeing an unexpected person appear here, Huang Haoxian looked completely confused. Eugene then told him Piao Xian's true identity. After hearing everything, Huang Haoxian slowly walked up to Piao Xian, his tone full of disbelief. "So I ended up like this all because I got involved with a punk like you?" Faced with Huang Haoxian's questioning, Piao Xian couldn't say a word. At this time, Eugene also noticed Haoxian's mother in the classroom. He quickly pushed open the door, crying out, "Auntie!" Seeing his mother here, Huang Haoxian anxiously limped into the room. Piao Xian still hesitated, not daring to enter. So he instructed Eugene to bring Huang Haoxian and his mother to the parking lot to meet Ruikyu. Then he called out to Huang Haoxian inside. "Haoxian, I'll explain everything properly to you later." His tone was full of self-blame. "I'm sorry, I failed to protect anything." But Huang Haoxian supported his mother as they passed by him, and ultimately, after walking a few steps, turned back to tell him, "You'd better explain everything to me. What you want to protect, why you're apologizing, you need to explain it all clearly." With that, he walked away. Piao Xian remained in place, muttering to himself, "Okay, I will." So, he looked toward the depths of the corridor. "You can come out now." Before he finished speaking, a young man appeared at the end of the dark corridor. He slowly walked up to Piao Xian, remarking with interest, "You really are perceptive. Yellow hair, blue eyes. You must be Sean, right? I heard you were called a legend. It made me so nervous. But you look quite different from what I heard." Piao Xian's eyes were sharp. "Who exactly are you?" "Zhang Xian, that's my name. L Country, Ice Source Village, Barefoot's Base, Bear's Den." The man before them, Barefoot's strategic planning advisor, Baruka Koznov, was hosting Vincent, codename Recordkeeper from Deadpool Tower. Vincent was here precisely because of the battle between the two organizations in K Country a few days ago. At this time, the burly man beside them, Barefoot's tactical instructor, Sasha Denisov, indicated this was just a minor friction that occurred during mission execution. Vincent obviously didn't believe it because Barefoot not only sent Dmitri, but also sent their #1 figure, Igor Medvedev, alias Red Fist. Sasha tried to argue, but was stopped by Vincent's subordinate, who mercilessly mocked Sasha as a shorty. Sasha was immediately enraged, removing his glasses wanting to have a proper fight with them, but was cut on the face by sharp threads that appeared from nowhere. Baruka naturally also noticed these threads. Not only that, he discovered that at some point the second floor was surrounded by a circle of children. He righteously criticized Vincent. Hey, do you have any self-awareness? This already counts as child abuse. Seeing no response, he wanted to pull out his gun to shoot Vincent, but an orange-haired child jumped beside him. Vincent immediately spoke. What are you doing? I didn't order you to come down. The child revealed shocking news to him. The director and others who stayed at Deadpool Tower couldn't be contacted. At this time, Baruka's subordinate also brought news. Something happened to Red Fist. Meanwhile, Piao Xian and Zhang Xian broke into fierce combat. When Piao Xian managed to block Zhang Xian's powerful kick in time, he felt as if he'd been struck hard by an iron hammer. Then he counterattacked with a punch, but his punching hand was lightly caught by the opponent. Taking advantage of Piao Xian's dodge, Zhang Xian executed another roundhouse kick, muttering, I was looking forward to Deadpool Tower's masterpiece and legend, but you're so disappointing, so you might as well just lie down. With that, he forcefully stomped downward, but Piao Xian firmly caught this move while also grabbing his collar. Piao Xian threw Zhang Xian out the window, thinking his opponent would die from the fall. The next second, he heard Zhang Xian's voice from outside the window. You really want to throw me out? Zhang Xian sat on the windowsill and climbed back in. Aren't you a good child? With that, he grabbed Piao Xian's face with lightning speed and slammed him against the wall. Zhang Xian didn't make another move. He murmured, this won't do. I was told to bring him back to play. I almost killed him. Meanwhile, Mary and Ruikyu were still in a standoff. If you're willing to cooperate, you can join us, Mary said. Ruikyu pressed the gun under her chin. Stop joking. Don't you understand your situation? But Mary indicated that it was Ruikyu who didn't understand the situation because Barefoot's Captain Red Fist would soon arrive in K Country. Just as she finished speaking, a male voice came through her earpiece. Sorry, Igor won't be going the private plane to K Country. Boom! Exploded. Ruikyu found this voice increasingly familiar. The next second, the man greeted her. Hi, Ruikyu. Long time no see. How have you been? I'd love to come see you in person, but unfortunately there's too much to handle here. Zero, why are you using the director's private line? Ruikyu demanded. Zero looked at the man beside him. Do you even need to ask? I'm with the director right now, though unfortunately the director isn't in a convenient state to answer the phone. Mary anxiously asked what he meant, because he had promised not to harm the director. Zero said casually, sorry I lied to you. I planned to destroy Deadpool Tower from the very beginning, so naturally the director can't stay, right? Mary, this is all thanks to you. You diverted everyone's attention to the conflict with Barefoot. This was an unexpected tactic, truly worthy of the masterpiece of intelligence. Thanks to you, most of the people from the monastery went to Barefoot, allowing us to so easily destroy Deadpool Tower. Plus, now that the leaders of both organizations can't be contacted, they should be starting to suspect each other now, right? Just as Zero said, Vincent and Baruka indeed had a conflict. However, before the battle could ignite, it was stopped by a tall blonde woman. She was the supreme leader of L Country, a war hero, Alexandra Sophia. Seeing her arrive, Baruka couldn't help but exclaim, wow, Sophia actually showed up? He looked at Vincent. Deadpool Tower, you're too despicable. You actually called Alexandra here? Before he finished, Sophia slowly passed by them, though I once helped Deadpool Tower. Then her gaze sharpened, but the phrase called here makes me quite uncomfortable. The aura emanating from her made them shiver, not daring to breathe. Sophia sat down under the orange-haired child's admiring gaze. I'm not here today to take anyone's side, just to tell you that the current situation isn't simply a problem between Barefoot and Deadpool Tower. That person has appeared. Your Deadpool Tower's secretly scrapped masterpiece, Zero. Meanwhile, Zhang Xian also told Piao Xian about Zero, but Piao Xian had no idea who this Zero was. Zhang Xian told him to ask Zero himself. His mission was to bring Piao Xian to Zero. Piao Xian suddenly bit down hard on Zhang Xian's tiger's mouth, also biting off the cloth band wrapped around his hand. But his mouth was filled with a disgusting, strange taste, making him cough violently in nausea. Seeing his beloved item taken, Zhang Xian instantly turned dark. He punched Piao Xian, veins bulging on his face. Damn it, give it back! Piao Xian didn't want to provoke this madman further and threw the cloth band back to Zhang Xian. At this time, Zero called Zhang Xian, asking if things were going smoothly. Hearing the stammering voice on the other end, Zero was somewhat helpless. Don't tell me you got angry and fought with someone again. I told you before you can't do this. You must help me so I can help you find that person. If you accidentally kill Sean, that would really be troublesome for me. Sorry, Zero. Zhang Xian looked at Piao Xian nearby, but this guy is way too different from what you described. He not only attacked Piao Xian's abilities, but also criticized his low-taste appearance. Zero was doubtful about this claim. He couldn't help but speculate, could he have decided on some parents again? He told Zhang Xian to test and find out. When Piao Xian heard that sentence, go kill the woman related to Sean, he punched at lightning speed, knocking Zhang Xian to the ground. Zhang Xian coughed up blood, shocked internally. What's happening? I didn't see that at all. This round, the battle situation reversed, with Piao Xian taking the initiative. Zhang Xian had to focus completely to barely dodge, seeing that kick from Piao Xian leave a deep crater where he'd just been standing. Piao Xian wanted wanted to attack again but suddenly felt dizzy, and his head spun. Meanwhile, Zhang Xian continued reporting to Zero. You seem to have guessed right. His eyes lit up with interest. Deadpool Tower's legend Sean is somewhat useful. Then he noticed the glaring sunlight outside. Is it already this late? Zero told him to retreat first. Anyway, with Sean locked, like this, he wouldn't be helpful to them. So Zhang Xian gave up capturing Piao Xian and left alone. At this time, Eugene found Piao Xian. This is terrible! Deadpool Tower! The director, before finishing, he noticed the corridor in disarray and asked Piao Xian what happened. Only then did Piao Xian realize Zhang Xian had quietly left at some point. He hurriedly told Eugene everything that had just happened. Just after finishing, that dizzy feeling struck again. This time he blacked out and fell to the ground. After instructing Eugene to make sure to find Zhang Xian, his consciousness then scattered and he passed out. Then, a month passed. This disaster caused by Deadpool Tower was ultimately cleaned up by White Tiger Human Resources, and the school temporarily suspended classes. The mastermind of the series of events was attributed to Quan Bingu. Huang Hoxian and his mother also temporarily suspended Hoxian snack shop's operations due to the trauma. But Piao Xian ultimately couldn't resist coming here. As soon as he pulled up the metal shutter, a gun was pressed to his head, followed by a familiar male voice. Kid, hurry up, will you? Dimitri stared at him impatiently. How long are you going to make me wait? Piao Xian looked inside. Seeing that the two teams who had been at each other's throats were now miraculously gathered together, he couldn't help but remark, everyone looks so friendly. A month ago you were trying to kill each other. Mary silently displayed the handcuffs in her hands, refuting his statement. Work is work. Plus, the person who was supposed to pay us disappeared. With that, Dimitri picked up a knife from the table and walked over to Mary. Most importantly, Igor was also killed. I can't possibly let that Zero bastard go. I heard he came from Deadpool Tower, right? He stabbed the knife into the table behind Mary, staring at her coldly. Whatever you know, you'd better tell me everything honestly. Ruikyu on the side indicated that Deadpool Tower's situation was equally bad. She believed it was Barefoot's interference that led to them being ambushed. Yuris immediately argued with her upon hearing this. In the chaos, Piao Xian stepped forward to take charge. Everyone here should be very clear who our real common enemy is. He proposed everyone temporarily team up to form a new organization. Dimitri was interested in this proposal and asked Piao Xian what this new organization would be called. Piao Xian took one letter from Barefoot and Deadpool Tower's English names, forming bad. How about bad children? We bad children have only one goal, Zero. We need to beat that guy to a pulp. Looking at the boy who seemed like a completely different person, Dimitri couldn't help but remark, this kid has completely transformed into another person in just 1 month. He turned to ask Ruikyu what happened. Hearing this, Ruikyu recalled what happened a month ago. Back then, Piao Xian was hospitalized unconscious, and she was at the hospital keeping watch. She called Vincent to inquire about the status of Deadpool Tower. Vincent indicated that when he rushed back to the tower, both the director and Zero had vanished. Not only that, but Zero had also taken the ledger recording the good children. Hearing this, Ruikyu immediately understood. Zero was doing this to personally retrieve those good children who had already been sold. Vincent told her they were using backup ledgers to confirm the buyer's locations and safety status, but due to insufficient manpower, he couldn't protect everyone. Therefore, he had no choice but to seek assistance from Barefoot. Ruikyu believed that even if Zero killed the buyers, control of those good children wouldn't fall into his hands. But Vincent brought up what Mary had said before. We found a way to break the 3 principles. He speculated that Zero might have actually found that method. Ruikyu agreed with his view. Wasn't the director previously worried about the emergence of children who break free from the absolute 3 principles? So when I went to find Sean, the director also asked me to first confirm whether he had broken free from the 3 principles. After learning that Sean hadn't awakened yet, Vincent proposed another hypothesis. Zero will probably actively approach Sean, so at the very least we must retrieve Sean first. We absolutely cannot let them meet. At this moment, Piao Xian was deep in a dream. In the dream, he returned to that suffocating rainy day. His mother brought young him to Deadpool Tower and threw him to the director. At the time, the director was somewhat hesitant. This child is with his own mother. How can we? But his mother viciously threw him onto the muddy ground, saying she would pay to leave him here. Back then, his body was drenched in rain, and his heart felt like it was raining too. The dream ended here, and he woke up, finding himself in a hospital. He immediately remembered everything that happened before he lost consciousness, and Zero's instruction to Zhang Xian to kill Hoxian's mother. At this thought, he immediately escaped the hospital and rushed to Huang Hoxian's front door, only to see a knife wedged in the door crack. Just as he was puzzled, the man behind him spoke. You finally came? Sean, you made me wait so long. I missed you. Piao Xian looked confused. Who are you? Zero hurriedly stood up. You don't remember me? He instantly flashed in front of Piao Xian and grabbed his hand, his eyes full of disappointment. This won't do. I missed you so much and came to find you personally. Then a bloodthirsty gleam crossed his eyes. Didn't I tell you I would kill that woman? Piao Xian was so angry he immediately swung his fist. So it was you on the phone. Zero elegantly dodged his attack, pretending to be disappointed. This is really terrible. You're still obsessed with pretending to be a good child even now? He snapped Piao Xian's kicking leg aside with a smack. Did you decide on parents again? He slowly pulled the knife from the door crack. So you don't remember at all? You don't remember what kind of person you originally were. With that, he swung the knife at Piao Xian with astonishing speed. Piao Xian barely dodged and fell to the ground. Then Zero swung the blade again, driving it straight into the floor behind Piao Xian. You're not like us. You were never a good child to begin with. He told Piao Xian everything he saw that day. Back then, Piao Xian lay on the ground, asking his mother in confusion what he had done wrong. He had only killed the neighbor his mother found noisy, including that dog that barked a lot. He had eliminated his mother's troubles and thought he'd done something great. Only then did the director understand why the woman so detested her child. So he agreed to take in Piao Xian and brought him into Deadpool Tower's church. The director just didn't know that Zero had already noticed his presence at the time. Getting to this point, Zero firmly promised, if you still insist on deciding on parents and pretending to be a good child, no matter how many times I will take away your parents until you give up. Piao Xian looked at his face reflected in the blade. Remembering his mother's undisguised look of disgust back then, a strong sense of resentment surged from the bottom of his heart. He suddenly snapped the blade and gripped the sharp broken edge, thrusting it towards Zero's eyes, but the other still dodged. Seeing the gloomy look in Piao Xian's eyes, Zero felt incredibly excited. This is the real you! The scene changed to Deadpool Tower's wine cellar, where Baruka was secretly drinking wine. Very unfortunately, his actions were discovered by Vincent, but Vincent didn't mind. Instead, he noticed the diagram on the table showing the bodyguard deployment near the buyers. Baruka explained that he had dispatched Barefoot's mercenaries to protect those buyers, and the personnel arrangement order was based on the buyers' financial power and importance. This deployment diagram and Baruka's explanation made Vincent immediately realize that this Barefoot strategic planning advisor indeed had an extraordinary mind. After becoming allies, the two could sit and drink together without reservations. At this time, Baruka asked, how do you brainwash those kids? Most of the children who come here have been abandoned by their families. Their sense of deficiency is much stronger than ordinary people. Vincent answered, we took advantage of this point to make those children understand. Only by becoming perfect, good children are they qualified to become family. Baruka couldn't help but exclaim, you guys are damn evil. Did the director come up with this? It was inspired by a certain guy. Vincent answered, though he absolutely can't be considered a good child, he extremely desires to become one. A child who would do anything just to gain his parents' approval. Meanwhile, Zero and Piao Xian's battle continued. After the sneak attack failed, Piao Xian kicked the opponent away, then slowly stood up. Maybe you're right. I don't seem to be a good child. So, his eyes sharpened, killing intent rising. If I just eliminate you who wants to kill my mom, then I'll be a good child again, right? Zero's tone also turned suddenly cold. That's exactly the problem, Sean. While blocking Piao Xian's attacks, he said, it's precisely because of your behavior that Deadpool Tower created the absolute 3 principles. It's all because of you that we started being controlled. Before he finished, Piao Xian's hand gripping the blade suddenly exerted force, and blood immediately splattered, splashing onto Zero's right eye. He momentarily lost his guard and staggered backward from Piao Xian's attack. Zero quickly wiped the blood from his eye corner, then knocked the blade from Piao Xian's hand and swung the knife back with his other hand. Piao Xian leaped up, dodging this strike, then picked up that broken blade and slashed forward, cutting off a piece of Zero's collar. Next, he made full use of available resources and grabbed a flower pot to block Zero's counterattack, and using the pot as cover, gripped the broken blade and thrust fiercely at Zero. Though Zero knocked the blade from Piao Xian's hand, he was caught by the opponent's right hand. Piao Xian took advantage and punched him, but Zero took the opportunity to switch the knife from his right hand to his left, slashing at Piao Xian again. Piao Xian cursed impatiently, that knife is really annoying. With that, as Zero swung the knife, he punched and shattered the knife. At this barbaric act, Zero remarked, Sean, you're too exaggerated. Even worse than I thought. As the words fell, his knee shot upward, hitting Piao Xian's jaw. Piao Xian refused to back down and countered with a spinning kick. While catching this move, Zero pulled out a small knife from behind. On the other side, the tipsy Baruka curiously asked, so who exactly is that kid? The Sean we planned to take out before. Vincent answered. He asked if Baruka had arranged personnel near Sean. Baruka said no. Vincent thought Sean was the key person to protect, but Baruka insisted there was no need to arrange manpower. The reason he said this was because Sophia had personally taken action. At this moment, she slowly walked up to the two, causing trouble everywhere. How insolent, Zero. She looked at Piao Xian. Long time no see, Sean kid. However, she changed her tone. How did you get yourself into this state? I clearly locked you up. Let's greet each other later. She affectionately patted Piao Xian's head, then glared at Zero. I'll deal with him first. The latter's hair immediately stood on end. Then he was instantly knocked out by Sophia's punch, thrown to the end of the corridor like a chicken. Sophia couldn't help but complain, really, this guy is still just a kid, too light. At this moment, she looked closely. Zero had already escaped through the window. She didn't pursue because that wasn't her purpose for coming. She turned to look at Piao Xian. We need to have a good talk, disciple. Even though I locked you up, who gave you permission to become this weak? Her tone was serious. Looks like a good adjustment is needed. With that, she hoisted Piao Xian onto her shoulder like a chicken and told told him, "That old woman living here isn't home right now. Trust me, Sean kid. Betting on the name of Alexandra, I guarantee I'll protect your parents, even if they're parents you've decided on by yourself. Focus on training." She revealed the training plan. "Let's start with death squats. How about it? You should still remember, right? Failure means death." Time returned to the present. In the car, recalling Sophia's hellish training, Piao Xian still had lingering fear. It's squatting with TNT bombs strapped to your lower body. Any moment of relaxation and you'd be blown to pieces. Dimitri remarked playfully, "Alexandra is something else." Piao Xian frantically told him not to mention that name again. Then Dimitri asked how much his strength had improved in this past month. Piao Xian said if he was curious, he could confirm it himself. Both simultaneously let out sinister laughs. Near Yanhe Middle School, Piao Xian told Dimitri to stop the car. Before getting out, Dimitri gave him a long string of nagging instructions. This scene fell into the eyes of two nearby students, who thought it was a father nagging his son. Hearing their discussion, Piao Xian's gaze toward Dimitri took on a hint of complex emotion. On the other side, in an abandoned warehouse, Zhang Xian was lying down, examining the cloth band wrapped around his hand. At this time, Zero appeared. "Xian, how are you doing?" Just as he was carefully examining the surroundings, Zhang Xian picked up scissors from the ground and unexpectedly thrust them towards Zero. Zero turned his head at just the right time, but he directly stabbed the scissors into the vending machine next to Zero, pretending he was repairing the machine. Then he pulled Zero to sit on a white chair he had prepared in advance, claiming it was a magic chair. Sitting down would make you tell the truth. Zero teased that he was in a good mood today. Zhang Xian's eyes suddenly turned cold, saying he wasn't in a good mood at all and telling Zero to honestly answer his questions. "Didn't you promise me? You said you'd help me find that person. Are you really seriously looking?" "Of course I'm looking, but before that, we still have things we must complete," Zero answered. He said only with Sean present could he keep his promise. Zhang Xian was very puzzled by this explanation and warned Zero that if he dared to be perfunctory or lie, he would definitely kill him. Hearing this, Zero thought, "I originally thought he just had good skills. Seems he's smarter than I imagined. He might become very troublesome later. Might as well." At this thought, he quietly pushed his scabbard open a bit. Unexpectedly, Zhang Xian had already noticed his movement and held his knife ready. "You'd better think carefully before drawing that blade." So Zero gave up the idea of killing Zhang Xian and returned to a relaxed, chatting state. He stood up, saying he'd take Zhang Xian somewhere interesting to play. On the other side, when Piao Xian walked into the classroom, classmates immediately started gossiping, but they already knew the photos circulating around school before were fake. Only Piao Xian knew that he was able to clear his name so quickly because Mary gave him compromising photos of the principal in women's clothing. Thinking of that nauseating photo, Piao Xian immediately felt his stomach churn. Unexpectedly at this moment, those school bullies found him again. They had obviously heard that the photo of Piao Xian with gangsters was fake. An ominous premonition surged in Piao Xian's heart, but he still followed them downstairs. The leader, a big guy, felt he'd been played and angrily swung his fist at Piao Xian. Piao Xian just lightly flicked his finger, hitting the big guy's jaw. The big guy immediately fell to the ground in pain. His finger flick had such power because of Sophia's guidance. During training, Sophia told him his problem was always forcing himself to believe he was controlled by the three principles. Piao Xian said he understood this, but his body wouldn't obey. So Sophia taught him another method. Since he could only use partial strength, then increase the total value of his strength. At this moment, after dealing with the last small fry, Piao Xian was certain that Sophia's training was effective. Back in the classroom, he recalled practicing on those small fries just now, and immediately gained confidence. As long as he could unleash his full strength, he could definitely handle Zero and Zhang Xian. "Speak of the devil," a familiar voice rang in Piao Xian's ear. "Long time no see, Sean." The next second, he was kicked to the ground by the newcomer. When he saw the other's face clearly, his expression couldn't help but stiffen. The newcomer was actually Zhang Xian, but all of this was within Piao Xian's expectations. Before returning to school, he had discussed with Ruikyu that he would be the bait to lure Zero and Zhang Xian out. At that time, Ruikyu asked what his goal was for this operation. Piao Xian answered without thinking, "Of course it's to get Zero." Ruikyu interrupted him. "Sean, you're different from those children controlled by the three principles. There's no one giving you orders or controlling you now. Why do you still want to oppose Zero? Do you still consider that old woman your mother?" Piao Xian said he wasn't clear himself. At first, he didn't remember at all what Ruikyu and the others said about being abandoned. It wasn't until he confronted Zero face to face that he vaguely recalled some fragments. Ruikyu was slightly surprised hearing this. "Can't remember? Wasn't Sean using his abilities because of awakening?" Piao Xian told her he couldn't currently unleash all his power. "If that's the case, why are you still trying so hard?" Ruikyu asked. But Piao Xian answered this way, "You're right. I'm not their family, much less a friend. If I really had to say what choice I made outside the three principles," his eyes suddenly became firm. "If anyone makes a move on that family, I'll beat them up thoroughly. That's my choice." At this moment, facing Zhang Xian's appearance, Piao Xian thought to himself, the hunt has begun. In the corridor, the small fries limped back to the classroom covered in wounds. Just as they reached the door, they were unluckily crushed under the falling door. They had stumbled into Piao Xian and Zhang Xian's battle zone. At this time, Piao Xian grabbed Zhang Xian's foot and threw him out the window like a shot put. Zhang Xian barely stabilized himself, exclaiming in delight, "Your strength really has gotten stronger." Noticing more and more people gathering in the corridor, Piao Xian thought, need to change locations. So taking advantage of Zhang Xian's punch, Piao Xian similarly grabbed his hand and flipped him to the ground. Zhang Xian was surprised internally. This is Big Daddy's technique. Piao Xian kicked Zhang Xian into the bathroom, out of everyone's sight. Now he could finally close the door and properly deal with Zhang Xian. Meanwhile, more and more people gathered in the corridor. A school nurse slowly walked over and asked a student to clarify the situation. She said she would handle this matter and had the students all return to their classrooms. On the bathroom side, after the two exchanged several moves, Piao Xian found an opportunity and slammed Zhang Xian to the ground, immediately asking about Zero's whereabouts. Hearing Zero's name, Zhang Xian seemed injected with adrenaline, doing a carp jump and kicking Piao Xian away. Piao Xian was full of impatience. "You're still planning to keep fighting?" Zhang Xian charged at him fiercely while saying, "Zero told me to at least keep you alive." Then he grabbed the opponent's punching hand, and with a rabbit kick, sent Piao Xian crashing through the door into a toilet stall. Then he said, "But if you continue being this naughty, I can't help you either. Just resist a little and obediently come with me, so I can retrieve you, so I can also find that person." Just as he finished, an iron shovel grazed his cheek, leaving a wound on his face. He quickly dodged while hearing Piao Xian say, "You don't intend to kill me?" Piao Xian slowly stood up. "What about others?" "Hard to say," Zhang Xian answered, while thinking, what's going on? He suddenly seems like a different person? Then the two fought fiercely again. However, at this moment knocking came from the door, accompanied by angry shouting, "You inside! Open the door right now!" Zhang Xian suggested they call it quits for today and proposed a truce. But Piao Xian didn't give him this chance. Zhang Xian wouldn't indulge him either and grabbed him in a bear hug, charging toward the window. The two crashed through the window, falling straight down from the height. Zhang Xian asked playfully, "Falling from here should hurt a lot, right?" This suffocating feeling of weightlessness finally let Piao Xian empathize with Huang Haoxian's experience. He wasn't afraid, just answered flatly, "Should hurt a lot, definitely," but he didn't give up on survival. Instead, he flipped the iron shovel in his hand and forcefully thrust the sharp end into the wall, using the intense friction to slow their descent. The two fell to the ground. Piao Xian wasn't injured, but the iron shovel in his hand broke in two. The other half was stuck in Zhang Xian's thigh. Even injured, Zhang Xian planned to fight Piao Xian again. At this time, a school nurse suddenly appeared. Piao Xian felt dizzy and disoriented at just the right time. Here, the nurse caringly inquired about Zhang Xian's physical condition. Zhang Xian, rarely shown concern, let down his guard in the face of this subtle warmth and allowed her to inject him with a dose. He asked puzzled what she had injected. The nurse answered calmly, something similar to an anesthetic. Before she finished, Zhang Xian passed out, looking at the boy in her arms. The school nurse disguised as Ruikyu murmured, "Sleep well. I have many things to ask you." Her eyes flashed with excitement. The first prey caught Zhang Xian. In the infirmary, Ruikyu told Piao Xian that Zhang Xian was essentially from the same source as him, both weapons cultivated from organizations similar to Deadpool Tower, except Zhang Xian came from K Country's Deadpool Tower. Then Ruikyu said she needed to focus on interrogating Zhang Xian and sent Piao Xian back to the classroom. At this moment, Zhang Xian had a dream. In the dream, that man was cutting Young his hair. While cutting, the man said, "Men rely on hairstyles. If you're ugly, you won't sell well." Zhang Xian said he wanted the man's hairstyle. The man couldn't help but praise, "Our little Xian has aesthetic sense too." With that, remembering something, he added, "I need to add another line to the guarantee. Talented in both arts and athletics. This way, next time I send you to be adopted, I can charge more money." He changed his tone. "But you can't have my hairstyle." Zhang Xian was puzzled. "Why? Being handsome would sell for more money, right?" The man solemnly instructed. "Because everything about you must be Zhang Xian. Zhang Xian is very handsome, so you must be handsome. Zhang Xian is strong, so you must also be strong." He paused. Most importantly, Zhang Xian must be alone. Because having family makes you weak. The dream ended. Zhang Xian slowly woke up. The moment consciousness returned to his body, the pain in his thigh made him furrow his brow, but he discovered the wound had already been treated by that woman. So he asked Ruikyu, "Why help me? Aren't we enemies?" Ruikyu smiled gently at him. "As long as you're willing to cooperate obediently, we don't have to be enemies." She slowly approached him. "So are you willing to answer a few questions for me?" However, everything in the room was being watched by someone else. The man observed the situation while sighing. "Ruikyu looks beautiful with black hair too." His tone carried some excitement. "Wait for me, miss." Ruikyu brought Zhang Xian to the gymnasium. Although she consoled him with kind words and offered food, Zhang Xian still refused to reveal information. But Ruikyu wasn't in a hurry, just asking if he was still on Zero's side. Zhang Xian said he wasn't Zero's companion, but in a temporary cooperative relationship. What he valued was Zero's intelligence capability. Ruikyu mercilessly revealed the truth. Zero had no intelligence capability. He was just a child the same age as Zhang Xian. Zhang Xian argued this wasn't the case, because when he escaped from the real Uncle Mushu, Zero had ways to find him. Ruikyu took the opportunity to ask him what the real Uncle Mushu was. Zhang Xian then anxiously revealed to her, his entire tragic childhood experience. So why does Zero want to find you? Ruikyu asked the key point. He has a goal and hopes I'll help him. Zhang Xian answered frankly. He said he wants to liberate the good children sold by Deadpool Tower to various parts of the world. He also said everyone would become family. Just as he was about to continue, the man who suddenly appeared behind him stopped him. Riku instantly retreated several meters, entering a defensive stance. The man grabbed Zhang Xian's drink and said leisurely, "Miss Ruikyu, this should be our first meeting." He introduced himself. "I'm Miguel." Hearing this name, Ruikyu instantly recalled a saying circulated in Y Country's mercenary circles. If you see a matador waving a red cape, never desperately charge at it, because the matador will always be behind the prey. The man before her was none other than the one called Black Matador, Antonio Miguel. At this thought, she stammered, "Matador? Why are you with Zero?" But Miguel said he didn't like this title and told Ruikyu, "I don't kill bulls, what I catch are only people." As the words fell, he flashed behind Ruikyu like teleportation, leaving a long wound directly on her back. Seeing he hadn't killed with one strike, he couldn't help but sigh. "It's been a long time since I met someone who could dodge." With that, he pulled out another compressed rapier, extending it with a whoosh into a long blade. I seem to have gotten more excited, but Zhang Shan stood in front of him, not allowing him to attack Ruikyu. The next second, Miguel's thrust pierced through his body, and said coldly, "Zero said if you show even the slightest sign of betrayal, I should dispose of you directly." Looking at the fallen Zhang Xian, Miguel elegantly bowed as a farewell. Ruikyu appeared behind him holding a gun, aimed at his head and fired. But Miguel was no ordinary person. He swiftly dodged sideways, knocked the gun from Ruikyu's hand, then with one thrust tore Ruikyu's shirt. Ruikyu quickly drew another gun from her waist, and fired several shots at Miguel, but the next bullet jammed. The opponent seized this momentary opportunity and thrust fiercely at her, grabbing her long hair. Ruikyu gripped his rapier tightly, and the two fell into a stalemate. Meanwhile, Zhang Xian hadn't died but had sunk into past memories. As a child, Uncle Mushu had told him he still needed to learn a technique that only the real Uncle Mushu could teach. If Zhang Xian had the chance to meet him later, he could master this skill. At this thought, Zhang Xian suddenly stood up, the cloth band wrapped around his palm sliding off. When Miguel noticed Zhang Xian was gone, it was too late. The other had flashed behind him with lightning speed, and like a claw scratched Miguel with his hand as a blade. This was what the real Uncle Mushu taught him, wildness. In a car outside the school, a group was waiting for Miguel to complete his mission. At this time, a white-haired man was trying to load his gun, but found the gun was jammed. The yellow-haired youth wearing a hat beside him reached out. "Give it to me." After fiddling with it a few times, he fixed the gun. The man sitting across from him sounded puzzled. "I don't think I've seen you before, because I'm not one of your people." With that, the youth slowly removed his hat, revealing his true appearance. It was Piao Xian. Meanwhile, on Miguel's side, looking at the out-of-control boy before him, Miguel was surprised. What's with this kid? He barely dodged the other's claw, his smile amused. This movement is just like a wild beast. Since his opponent was a wild beast, he had a special countermeasure. He immediately displayed the matador's specialty, pulling out a red cloth from his pocket, wrapping it around his weapon and saying to Ruikyu upstairs, "Miss Ruikyu," saying this might be shameless but please stay put there obediently. He waved his hand broadly, unfurling the red cloth before Zhang Xian. "This is a battle of pride between man and beast." As the words fell, Zhang Xian charged forward fiercely, his claw tearing through the red cloth. However, the man behind the cloth had already vanished, appearing behind him the next second, supporting himself on his shoulders. And leaping up, this was his move, Mounted Matador. Then he thrust his rapier forcefully at Zhang Xian, but the other dodged sideways, and instead kicked Miguel in the abdomen. Miguel pulled open his coat, revealing pockets in the lining full of compressed rapiers. He continuously shot rapiers like arrows at Zhang Xian, and in an instant, the ground was filled with rapiers. This was his other move, Banner Bearer. He could continuously use these rapiers to attack Zhang Xian. As Miguel kicked forcefully, Zhang Xian crashed directly into the net formed by dense rapiers behind him. Only then did he realize he had no way to retreat. At this moment, Miguel had already gripped a rapier and charged before him, thrusting forcefully but hitting empty air. Zhang Xian had used the rapiers to leap into the air, dodging this strike. Then he turned and delivered a heavy kick, hitting Miguel square in the jaw. The opponent fell to the ground. Miguel shakily stood up, still muttering, "I can still fight," but he finally understood that Zhang Xian wasn't a beast, but a monster. He decided not to care about that ridiculous pride anymore, and immediately pierced a nearby fire extinguisher. The spraying powder instantly blocked Ruikyu's vision. Miguel took advantage of the chaos to escape the gymnasium, completely failing to notice the figure hiding at the corner of the building. Miguel ran toward the car waiting at the school gate, wanting to tell everyone the plan had changed, but ran into Piao Xian head-on. Piao Xian grabbed his hair and pressed him to the ground, saying he had many things to ask him. Seeing his knocked-out companions in the car, Miguel thought this was bad, but at this moment, he was already a fish on the chopping block, only able to be slaughtered. On the other side, after experiencing a fierce battle, Zhang Xian regained consciousness. He picked up the cloth band that was so important to him from the ground, rewrapping it around his hand, murmuring dejectedly, "Sister was right. Looks like I was really deceived by Zero." As the words fell, the wound on his abdomen suddenly suddenly burst open, intense weakness struck, and his body swayed and fell. Ruikyu caught him in time, and once again took him to treat his wound. Meanwhile, the man hiding by the gymnasium received a call from his superior. Eden, next order, finish up. Just then, Ruikyu walked out supporting Zhang Xian. As soon as Ruikyu stepped out, she felt a nail gun pressed against her temple. The next second, blood splattered, and Zhang Xian happened to witness the scene. The sister who had given him warmth fell right before him. He wanted to go forward to help, but the wound on his abdomen burst open again with blood. Eden was on the phone reporting completion, but Ruikyu gripped a knife and suddenly thrust at him, furiously angry, drilling holes in people's heads out of nowhere. Eden seemed somewhat regretful. Missed? What a pity. But who are you? He coldly turned around, meeting Piao Xian's incoming kick. Piao Xian kicked him down, but was met with Eden's right-hand nail gun pressed against his head. Then he discovered the opponent was using his left-hand nail gun to forcefully block the force of that kick. Eden fired 2 shots. Piao Xian barely dodged, but the safety helmet he was wearing had 2 holes punched through by the nail gun. Looking at the shattered safety helmet in the air, he felt a chill. That's no ordinary nail gun. Next, Eden delivered a horizontal kick, and Piao Xian blocked this strike. Seeing he'd worked hard for so long but accomplished nothing, Eden complained, dissatisfied, "You guy, you're making me really tired." But Ruikyu suddenly shouted to Piao Xian, "Sean, that guy is also a good child." Piao Xian was stunned. At his age, he can still be called a child, Ruikyu explained, because he was created even earlier than all of you, version 1. Meanwhile, on the building rooftop, Mary and Eugene were having afternoon tea. At this time, Mary asked, "Do you know about the existence of versions?" Seeing Eugene's confused expression, she explained, "The version before the good children, a generation earlier than Sean and Zero. Those children are called version 1 by us." From Mary's description, Eugene learned that version 1 children were created using different training methods. Namely, version 1 was custom-made, that is, cultivating children according to buyer's preferences. Simply put, it was made to order production. The child's ethnicity, gender, age, skills, and so on. It was precisely based on the educational methods for cultivating these children that version 2, them, was born. Hearing this, Eugene couldn't help but be curious. Are they stronger than us? Generally, we're considered more outstanding, but if version 1 focused on strengthening only one particular trait, that also shouldn't be underestimated. Mary answered. At this moment, facing Eden's continuous shooting, Piao Xian dodged, while leaping before Eden and heavily kicking his abdomen. Eden painfully retreated several steps, realizing the opponent's speed and destructive power were both above his own. At this thought, he pulled out a tape measure from his waist pack. Taking advantage of Piao Xian's flying kick, he measured the opponent's leg length, then forcefully caught Piao Xian's punch and measured his arm length. Finally, he was kicked by the opponent into the construction shed. Piao Xian walked into the shed unhurriedly, his gaze sharp. "Senior shouldn't be dead yet, right?" Eden wiped the blood from his mouth corner, saying confidently, "I finished measuring." With that, he fired several consecutive shots at Piao Xian, who still nimbly dodged. But Eden was precisely calculating Piao Xian's next landing point based on his leg length, stride, and speed, then immediately shot his left foot. Piao Xian swung a punch at Eden, but the opponent calculated the path to dodge this strike based on his arm length. Piao Xian thought this was bad and immediately turned to escape outside. Eden followed closely while pulling out a hammer and hammering at him fiercely. When he stopped his movement, he was shocked to discover Piao Xian had used the iron pipe left from demolition to block his attack. This time, it was Piao Xian's turn to counterattack. He held the pipe with both hands, executing that classic move, Alexandra Kali Arnis. Though Eden dodged this strike, he realized the opponent had become stronger while holding tools. Just as Piao Xian was preparing to deliver the final blow to Eden, a phone ringtone rang in his ear. The next second, the opponent's long arm extended, stopping his movement while answering the call. Hearing the instruction from his father on the phone to terminate the operation, Eden quickly got up and walked outside, waving at Piao Xian. "Not fighting anymore. I'm off work," Piao Xian hurriedly asked. "You're leaving? Is this Zero's order?" Eden disdainfully indicated why would he listen to that white-haired guy. He only obeyed his father's orders. Piao Xian pressed further about Zero's whereabouts, but clearly Eden didn't plan to tell him. He wanted to chase after, but the sharp pain in his left foot stopped him, and due to using Kali Arnis power twice in one day, he suffered backlash and felt dizzy again. On the roadside, Eden was about to drive away. An iron pipe suddenly pierced straight through the car roof, embedding into the steering wheel. The next second, Piao Xian landed on the car hood with a sinister expression, his tone cold. "Didn't I tell you to wait?" Eden quickly grabbed a nearby cutter and cut off the iron pipe before him, then slammed on the gas and threw Piao Xian off. Recalling the opponent's actions just now, he still felt lingering fear. "What the hell did those lunatics at Deadpool Tower create?" he muttered. "I just wanted to kill some time before going back." Before he finished, his shoulder was pierced by pipeline. Then Piao Xian's voice rang out. "You said, kill some time? For a guy who nails people's heads, saying that isn't quite right, is it?" Realizing the opponent was behind, Eden quickly observed Piao Xian's movements through the rearview mirror. Seeing him raise the iron pipe again and thrust forward fiercely, Eden tilted his head to dodge, and the pipe pierced through the seat back. He immediately counterattacked with the nail gun, then quickly jumped from the car, causing Piao Xian to crash into the iron wall ahead with the car. After confirming Piao Xian hadn't jumped from the car, Eden tremblingly left. With serious injuries, he struggled back to a lumber factory. When he sensed someone following behind, he sighed wearily, then turned to look at Piao Xian at the end of the road. "Must you chase me all the way here?" The commotion of their fighting attracted the attention of the old man inside. He came outside to check, only to see his son being pressed to the ground. Seeing the newcomer, Eden cried out, "Father!" The old man looked panicked. "What's going on?" Hearing Eden's address to the old man, Piao Xian recalled those dark memories. At this thought, he grabbed the iron pipe. Eden hurriedly told the old man to go inside quickly. But how could the old man watch his son being killed? He quickly spoke to stop him. The next second, an astonishing scene appeared. Piao Xian actually hit himself on the head with the iron pipe until his head was bleeding before stopping. Blood continuously flowed down his cheek. He gazed at the sunset, murmuring, "Damn," suddenly remembered some bad memories. He looked down at Eden. "I'll ask you just once. I'll leave immediately," after asking, "Where is that guy Zero?" Then, the three sat down to talk calmly. The old man first apologized to Piao Xian, then told him that a month ago, Zero had found him. He originally planned to kill me and retrieve Eden. Though Eden resisted with all his might, he was completely no match for him. The old man added, moreover, that guy was still in an injured state. Hearing this, Piao Xian thought, a month ago, was it when he was injured by Sophia? The old man continued, "In the end, we agreed to assist him as an exchange condition. Only then were we two able to survive." After understanding the cause and effect, Piao Xian no longer fussed. "Just tell me everything about Zero. We haven't seen him since then." The old man took out a phone. He only uses this phone to issue orders. Piao Xian took the phone. "As long as we track the location and communication records, we'll definitely find some clues." Hearing this, the old man guessed he was an expert in this area. Piao Xian found it strange. "As long as you're a good child, this small matter should. Doesn't that uncle know how?" The old man looked at the photo on the table beside. "Yes, because when I ordered Eden, I didn't request this ability." So Piao Xian asked the key question, "Grandpa, why did you buy Eden?" Outside the house, Eden sat alone for a long time. Then Piao Xian pushed the door and came out, sitting beside him. Piao Xian asked what his plans were next. He said he wasn't clear, because his only mission was to protect father. This was precisely the reason he was created, and why his father bought him. To his father, he was nothing more than an object. But Piao Xian told him this wasn't the truth, and advised Eden to find an opportunity to have an open-hearted talk with his father. Meanwhile, the old man was gazing at the photo of his son Jin Yul. Then his gaze fell on the photo of himself and young Eden on the wall, recalling that heart-wrenching past from 20 years ago. Back then, he and his son Jin Yul depended on each other, living off this lumber factory. That day, he was crafting a wooden chair for Jin Yul, but Jin Yul came back angrily. It turned out he had promised to pick up Jin Yul but broke his promise. He glanced at the time and realized he'd been so absorbed in woodworking that he'd delayed. To compensate his son, he decided to buy him fried chicken, and promised he would definitely pick up Jin Yul on time tomorrow. The next day, he went to pick up his son on time. Just as his son ran toward him happily, an accident happened. A speeding small truck took Jin Yul's life. In that instant, his world suddenly collapsed. Later, he traveled far to find Deadpool Tower in L Country, and ordered from the director at that time a child exactly like Jin Yul. 3 years later, the custom-made child came to his side. The other's appearance was identical to Jin Yul. At that time, he thought a miracle had happened, but when he approached the other behaved extremely politely, like an obedient doll, completely different from his Jin Yul. At that moment, he understood that the dead could not be resurrected. In that instant, the expectation in his heart was completely destroyed, leaving only endless desolation. He named that child Eden and lived plainly with him. When Eden sensibly indicated to call him if help was needed, he recalled the once boisterous Jin Yul again. So he stopped Eden and asked if they should eat fried chicken for dinner tonight. But watching Eden eating heartily, he clearly understood that Eden would never become Jin Yul. But now he also loved Eden. But Eden said he knew he was created to be Jin Yul's replacement. So as long as he could satisfy father, he was willing to do anything. Only at that moment did he understand what kind of life his foolish desire and obsession had forced Eden to live. He felt ashamed from the bottom of his heart. At that time, he covered his head and desperately murmured, "No need to do this. You're not my son. Absolutely not." He didn't know that this easily misunderstood phrase would bring such an obsession to this child. That day, he got drunk, and little Eden took care of him. He just didn't know that Eden had noticed the two small moles at the corner of Jin Yul's mouth in the photo. Later, a child's scream woke him up. He hurriedly got up to check, only to see Eden fallen on the ground with a nail gun beside him, and little Eden slowly pulled out the nail from his mouth corner, ignoring the splattering blood, looked at him and smiled, asking, "Am I a bit more perfect now?" Recalling this point, he came to the warehouse and found the blue wooden chair made for Jin Yul, affectionately stroking it. At this time, a little girl wearing a kimono and holding a sparkler appeared, inviting him to play together. Just as he felt puzzled, a bundle of sparklers was quietly thrown into the house. When the old man noticed, it was too late. The entire factory instantly exploded. Eden rushed in wanting to save his father, but saw the little girl crouching beside the fallen father, waving at him. He ignored Piao Xian's obstruction and immediately rushed over. A white-haired man suddenly appeared beside him and knocked Eden down with one stick. kick. Piao Xian couldn't just watch and quickly took action. The man had just dodged his kick when Eden pressed the nail gun against his head, but the man was clearly extraordinarily skilled, dodging Eden's bullet. Facing a common enemy, the two who were originally opponents now stood together. On this side, the little girl also presented specially made bullets to the man. Then he and Eden fought first, but Eden was clearly lacking in combat ability, so it was Piao Xian's turn to take action. With his extremely strong learning ability, he immediately executed Eden's technique Stone Strike. Just as he was focused on dealing with the white-haired man, the little girl attacked him. The flying knife was clearly strapped with explosives. Here, after witnessing Piao Xian's true strength, the white-haired man decided to fight seriously. An SUV crashed through the wall from behind him. Wild Ruikyu fired frantically through the sunroof at the man and little girl. Also coming to support were Dimitri and Eurus. Seeing the opponent's reinforcements increase, the man and little girl decided flight was the best strategy. They threw spherical bombs at Piao Xian, then escaped in the chaos. Seeing the enemies leave, Eden hurriedly searched for his father. He found the old man tightly hugging a blue wooden chair. Fortunately, he had only fainted. Seeing Eden and his father were unharmed, Piao Xian asked about Eden's plans next. Eden said he didn't want to oppose Zero and planned to run away with his father before things got big. But Piao Xian thought he was just avoiding, and handed him the photo of father and son. We just want to protect family. No matter what method, it's all the same, right? In the end, he convinced Eden, who decided to stay. When leaving, Piao Xian advised again, "Have a good talk, uncle." Eden grumbled, dissatisfied. "Damn, uncle, we're not that many years apart." He fist bumped with Piao Xian. "Next time we meet, call me brother." At this moment, Piao Xian felt familial warmth. Inside the house, watching his father carefully wiping the wooden chair. Eden, following Piao Xian's advice, wanted to communicate deeply with him, but was stopped by the old man. "Let's take a photo together." After fixing the camera position, the old man pushed Eden to sit on the wooden chair. While saying lightly, "It's too small for you now, isn't it?" He pondered for a moment. I'm always a bit slow at doing things." He gently held Eden's hand. "I should have asked you to sit on it earlier. I'm sorry, Dad was late, son." As the words fell, with a click, the image froze. Meanwhile, in the car, seeing Piao Xian's smiling face, Dimitri asked, "Kid, you seem to be in a good mood." Piao Xian smiled and answered, "Because for the first time, I have a brother." He looked forward to the next meeting with Eden, not knowing that conversation with his brother would be forever. On the other side, the boy slowly walked out of the burning factory. Under the baseball cap were his indifferent eyes symbolizing death. 1 week later, hearing the news, Piao Xian rushed to the hospital. He slowly walked to Eden's side, only to see a scene he would never forget in his life. The originally tall and handsome man had now become crooked-mouthed and slant-eyed, constantly muttering, "Father," Dimitri accompanying explained. His father was already dead before being brought in. After he regained consciousness, he might have been too shocked. At this time, the stiff-faced Eden suddenly spoke, "Sashan, help me." A tear slid down his eye corner. Father. This scene seemed to touch some nerve in Piao Xian. His stomach churned violently, and he rushed to the toilet, vomiting intensely. At this moment, he suddenly realized he was just a child who wasn't even prepared for loss. He walked out in a daze, just in time to run into Ruikyu. She asked him, "Are you very sad, Sean?" "It's fine now. I suddenly remembered what you taught us before." Piao Xian answered, "Cut throats with blades, pierce hearts with bullets. Everything you've learned is technology for taking lives. These words aren't to make you feel responsibility or a sense of mission, nor are they from some idealism. Anything can be the price you pay for using power. Those who take must also be prepared to be taken from. So make yourself stronger, become a sharper blade, a more lethal bullet. Before being plundered, first become the weapon that destroys enemies." On the other side, in a certain church, the little girl named Spark wanted to give the sparkler in her hand to the cap-wearing boy named Damien, who had critically injured Eden and killed Eden's father. But Damien impatiently swatted away the sparkler, wanting to teach this annoying brat a lesson, but was stopped by the white-haired man Slandy. The two who found each other disagreeable immediately started fighting, but were stopped by a glasses-wearing uncle. Then their leader Zero appeared, with a black long-haired woman beside him. They gathered here for an internal organization meeting. The meeting began. Zero immediately proposed rules he'd established similar to Deadpool Tower's absolute 3 principles. First, using all abilities must be for family. Second, abilities cannot be used for anyone except family. Third, everyone except family must be eliminated. These were their Judas 3 principles. After announcing, he had the black long-haired woman Sika hand Slandy a file and asked him to retrieve a child. The next morning, at dawn, Piao Xian had already packed his luggage. Eugene asked where he was going. He said to find Zero for revenge. Through Eden's phone, he'd found the other's location. Hearing this, Eugene said he wanted to act together. But Piao Xian's expression wasn't good, saying bringing him would only be a burden. Hearing these words, Zhang Xian beside couldn't help but mock. "I thought you got stronger, turns out just your personality got worse." He lazily lay on the sofa. "Whatever, it's none of my business anyway." He changed his tone. "However, even if you find that message location, you'll be wasting your time. Didn't they receive the same training as you? Do you think they'd be that careless? As the words fell, Piao Xian thrust a knife into the back of the sofa Zhang Xian was sitting on, staring at him with a gloomy tone. So what exactly should I do? Zhang Xian slowly stood up. I'll help you. I know what that Zero guy plans to do, and I happen to have something to return to him. Then the two came to an entertainment company. Zhang Xian told Piao Xian that Zero wanted to retrieve two children. One was Piao Xian, the other was a child named Morgan, now 19 years old. Piao Xian guessed Morgan was precisely a version 1 child. Then, looking at their outfits and the similarly fashionably dressed peers around, he asked Zhang Xian why he brought him here. Zhang Xian said he'd heard Morgan was bought by this entertainment company's president, so he decided to approach the president first. Piao Xian stuck a number tag on himself. So your plan is to participate in an idol audition? Zhang Xian answered confidently. Because I'm very handsome, I'll definitely be selected immediately. After that, I should be able to meet the president quickly. Piao Xian was speechless. You don't even know what kind of company this is, do you? Just as he was about to explain in detail to Zhang Xian, he was called by staff. Upon seeing Zhang Xian, the department head's eyes lit up, internally exclaiming, star quality, no, a superstar, the top-tier superstar. But colleagues sneered at the punk-looking Piao Xian. But the department head had a different view of him. Then he asked Zhang Xian what his best talent was. Zhang Xian answered thoughtfully that he was best at fighting. This answer immediately drew Piao Xian's mockery. The two immediately became tense, battle ready to ignite. But this scene had a different flavor in the department head's eyes. He thought the effect of the two together was very special. An idea immediately formed in his mind: debut the two as a duo and name them Wild Faction. Seeing the two getting more intense, he quickly called security to stop the chaos. Due to Zhang Xian's looks, security only grabbed Piao Xian. Piao Xian was very unconvinced, and immediately threw the guard restraining him to the ground. The other guards saw this and immediately grabbed him, preparing to educate him. After it ended, Piao Xian left the building, thinking, sure enough, those rumors are all true. SGT Entertainment's unknown side. On the surface, it's a company cultivating top idols, but actually it's a city's #1 gangster company, specializing in violently coercing people to sign unfair contracts. He reached this conclusion based on where the guards had taken him. There, he encountered many social bosses with tattoos, but being brought here was part of his plan. After dealing with the guards, he was determined to find Morgan, who the president had bought among these social bosses. Dealing with these small fries was naturally easy. He quickly dealt with them but didn't find Morgan. Just as he was puzzled, the door behind was suddenly pounded open. A white-suited man swung his fist at him. Piao Xian dodged this strike, causing the man to dent the door panel with a bang. Looking at the man with enormous strength before him, Piao Xian thought he'd found the right person. But comparing the child in the photo with the stark contrast of the rough uncle before him, he couldn't help but complain, "You've gotten way too ugly now." Then he invited Morgan to cooperate, otherwise Morgan's family would be in danger. But Morgan misunderstood this as a threat and immediately angrily swung his fist. Piao Xian was helpless and had to fight. Morgan was no match for him and was quickly hit in the abdomen. Then with an elbow strike, he solidly hit Morgan's back of the head. This was his technique hammer. The opponent coughed up blood. Just as Piao Xian was preparing to take him away, a pink-haired woman suddenly appeared and used the same technique hammer on Piao Xian. Piao Xian was very surprised. When he clearly saw the other's face, he suddenly recalled the poster hanging on the company wall. It was precisely this pink-haired woman. Piao Xian's jaw nearly dropped. "Aren't you the idol, Moa?" The pink-haired woman approached him and grabbed his collar. "Moa, my ass. I'm the person you're looking for. I'm the good child, Morgan." On the other side in the makeup room, seeing the makeup artist applying things to his face, Zhang Xian couldn't help but ask, "May I ask what this is for?" The department head said this was preparation for the photo test. Hearing this, Zhang Xian was very pleased. "So if I finish this, I'm selected?" The department head confirmed this and took out a contract wanting to sign with him. But Zhang Xian refused, saying he wanted to meet the president first, and pulled out Morgan's photo asking if he'd seen this person. The department head recognized the person in the photo at a glance, pointing at the poster on the wall and telling Zhang Xian, "That's the idol Moa." Zhang Xian's tone was puzzled. "The person in the photo is male?" The department head refuted. "Moa is of course female. However, she's indeed been a bit different from others since childhood. For a girl, her personality is quite rough." At this moment, looking at the people beaten to pieces behind, Morgan angrily punched Piao Xian flying, then used consecutive slaps to wake up the man whose real name was Park Pil-gyu. When she complained that Park Pil-gyu was past his prime, Piao Xian, who'd been punched into the room, slowly walked out, saying in a low voice, "For a girl's fist, that's really something." He dusted off his clothes, his eyes sharp. "However, compared to a certain lady I know, it's still far inferior." Seeing Piao Xian still lively, Morgan immediately rushed forward to fight him, though Piao Xian dodged some of her moves. He also realized her speed was quite agile. Understanding the other was version 1 specially cultivated in combat, but for him, her her strength wasn't enough. With one hand chop, he hit Morgan's cheek. Seeing the other only had a swollen cheek, he felt he'd struck too lightly and wanted to add another punch, but was restrained by Park Pil-gyu, who rushed over. Morgan also took the opportunity to leap using Park Pil-gyu's body, then with a spinning kick hit Piao Xian's face squarely while shouting, "I'll protect my uncles!" The word protect seemed to touch that taut nerve in Piao Xian's brain. He recalled the fist bump with Eden at that time, and his later disfigured appearance. His eyes suddenly became terrifying. With that level of strength, that's just a child throwing a tantrum. With that, he fiercely broke free from Park Pil-gyu's restraint, then forcefully grabbed his hair, first heavily slapping him, then with a knee strike hitting his face. Park Pil-gyu's face was immediately covered in blood. Just as Piao Xian was preparing to deliver the final blow to Park Pil-gyu, Morgan suddenly grabbed his pant leg and knelt down begging, "Stop, we were wrong," she cried helplessly. "I'll do whatever you want. Don't hurt the uncles anymore, please." Seeing the usually proud girl now humbling herself for them, the men all showed heartbroken looks. Looking at everyone with such deep affection, a strong sense of guilt surged in Piao Xian's heart. He couldn't help but murmur, "Like this, I've become the bad guy again." On the other side, on the road, the man was driving while talking with partner companies. At this time, the department head called, anxiously reporting to the man about the disappearance of the future superstar, Zhang Xian. The man, the company representative, was focused on listening to subordinates' reports, when he suddenly glimpsed a figure appearing ahead. When he saw clearly that person was raising a gun aimed at him, he frantically turned the steering wheel, but still had his tires shot out by several shots. Spark also took the opportunity to throw a spherical bomb under the chassis. With a huge roar, the car was blown into the air, rolling several times before landing upside down. Slandy slowly walked to the injured man's side, bending down to ask, "Are you SGT's representative Shin Gyu-tae?" After receiving the other's affirmative answer, he dragged him out through the car window and pointed the gun at him. "Where's Morgan?" Shin Gyu-tae asked back why he would know Morgan, but was kicked hard in the jaw. Shin Gyu-tae covered his bleeding jaw, dragging his injured body while moving and calling for help. This behavior made Slandy completely lose patience. He aimed the gun at Shin Gyu-tae's left leg, wanting to blow off this leg, but the moment he pulled the trigger, a suddenly appearing figure kicked the gun barrel, causing the bullet to miss. When he clearly saw the newcomer's face, Slandy slowly spoke. "You're that traitor. Your name is Zhang Xian, right?" On the other side, Piao Xian told Morgan that Zero planned to retrieve the good children, and she was also one of the targets. If she didn't go with Zero, she and her family would all die. Hearing this, Morgan declared confidently to let Zero come. She would beat him up badly. But Piao Xian ruthlessly poured cold water. "You plan to confront Zero head-on? You rabble can't even beat me. You're holding too many things." He pulled out a small knife from his pocket. "Stop being naive. You can't properly grip weapons and fists at all." On this side, Zhang Xian's appearance was undoubtedly a ray of hope for Shin Gyu-tae. Zhang Xian also appropriately indicated he came to pick him up and had something to discuss. Facing this handsome young man, Shin Gyu-tae immediately had stars in his eyes. "Do you want to sign with our company?" Zhang Xian was about to deny and explain the reason, but was interrupted by Slandy, who suddenly approached. Zhang Xian dodged his move, proposing the winner takes Shin Gyu-tae. Slandy was too lazy to listen and immediately shot at him, but was dodged by a crouch. Then it was Zhang Xian's turn to counterattack, but when he glimpsed the mottled, terrifying skin under Slandy's mask, his pupils suddenly dilated. It was this moment of distraction that let Slandy grab his foot and flip him to the ground. Slandy shot at Zhang Xian again, but was hit in the jaw by his one-handed spinning kick, causing the bullet to miss. Slandy had half his mask kicked off. At this time, Spark used her usual trick on Zhang Xian, flying knife bomb. Zhang Xian's left cheek was immediately cut. He decided to deal with this brat first. When he swung his fist towards Spark, a voice like from hell rang out, "Brat, don't touch one hair on Spark's head." Zhang Xian turned to look, seeing only a coat and wig remained at Slandy's original position. The next second, the other suddenly appeared behind him, grabbing his arm with a crack, leaving a bleeding wound. "I don't want to be this harsh on a child." Zhang Xian immediately kicked, pulling distance. Seeing the other left such a heavy wound with just a light grab, he realized the man before him was truly terrifying. He carefully unwrapped a cloth band, meaning he would use 100% focus and strength to deal with Slandy. He immediately used the technique wildness he'd used against Miguel that day. He quickly left a wound on Slandy. Then he grabbed the other's shoulder and fiercely headbutted toward Slandy's back of the head, but was resisted by the other, while his own arm was grabbed by Slandy and forcefully twisted. Zhang Xian's right hand and right leg broke with a sound. He struggled and kicked Slandy with his left foot, but it was only futile. Just as Slandy was about to finish off Zhang Xian, Eurus appeared holding a baseball bat, wanting to greet his back of the head, but was dodged by Slandy, who easily crushed the baseball bat made of special alloy. At the same time, Spark also threw 2 spherical bombs at Eurus. The bombs instantly exploded, engulfing Eurus's figure. Just as Spark wanted to run to Slandy for a hug, he stopped her, telling her to stay put, and said the battle wasn't over. The next second, a heavy protective shield appeared from the explosion smoke. Dimitri had blocked this strike for Eurus. Slandy recognized their identity. "Is it Barefoot?" Dimitri nodded. "That's right," then said, "Anyway, you should chat with me first. Messing with someone else's kid. You should be prepared, right?" Looking at the huge guy under Dimitri's command, Eurus looked more and more familiar. That's right, it's that. Dimitri grabbed the handle, holding it before him. The weapon Igor used before. Bear Hunter, here! Spark shouted angrily. What is that? It blocked all of Spark's firecrackers! Slandy guessed the shield had bulletproof plates added. He stretched his muscles, then suddenly grabbed at the shield's surface. Seeing his treasure damaged by the enemy like this, Dimitri angrily pulled out his gun. This is expensive, you bastard! He fired a barrage at Slandy, and told Eurus to take Zhang Xian and leave first. Unexpectedly, Spark blocked Eurus's path. She lit the sparkler in her hand toward him. At first, Eurus didn't think much of the small spark flying to his head. The next second, that spark suddenly exploded above his head, engulfing his figure. Slandy on the side, while dodging bullets, didn't forget to mock Eurus, burned to death. Brat, as soon as the words fell, Eurus suddenly burst from the flames, saying meaningfully, fire is much better than water. But Slandy appeared behind him like a ghost, extending his claws toward him, only to be hit by Dimitri holding the shield, and slammed hard into the wall. Eurus took the opportunity to rescue Zhang Xian. At this time, Spark fired several more bombs at Dimitri. Eurus looked at the explosion ahead, worriedly calling out to Dimitri. The next second, a gun emerged from the smoke and dust. Two bang-bang shots destroyed the sparkler bombs in Spark's hand. Dealing with a child, he couldn't bring himself to be harsh, just telling her to stay aside obediently. Suddenly, Slandy flashed before him, punching away the gun in his hand. He would never allow anyone to hurt his Spark. Seeing his weapon lost, Dimitri casually grabbed a hammer and continued fighting with Slandy. The opponent similarly snatched away his hammer. Seeing this, Dimitri had to use the shield as a weapon and told Eurus to quickly retreat with Zhang Xian. Then with a heavy strike, he knocked Slandy back, but the opponent, like an unkillable cockroach, rallied again and asked, I heard Igor Medvedev is dead. Who are you? Dmitry Medvedev. Dmitry answered solemnly, your red fist's brother? Saying this, Slandy flashed to Dmitri's side, grabbing at him fiercely but was blocked by his shield. Then Dmitri threw out several smoke bombs from behind the shield, and took advantage of the opponent's confusion in the smoke to flash to his side. However, Slandy had already seen through his tactics, kicking away the hammer in his hand. Dmitri quickly pulled out a gun from his chest, and fired several shots at Slandy, but the opponent was even faster than bullets, instantly sliding to his feet, and forcefully grabbing his ankle. He suddenly rose and reached out, grabbing at his cheek. Dmitri wasn't to be outdone either, stabbing at the opponent with his weapon. Blocked again. Slandy mocked, this isn't enough yet. Really? I think it's plenty. Saying this, Dmitri swung the shovel fiercely, forcing Slandy back several meters. The latter crack stepped into the bear trap Dmitri had set up while smoke was spreading. Seeing the prey hooked, Dmitri immediately nailed the trap's chain hard into the ground, making Slandy unable to move. Just as he was feeling proud, a white-haired youth slowly emerged from the smoke and dust. Dmitri quickly turned and slashed, but the opponent shattered the shovel with one blade. The next second, the youth's whisper came to his ear, nice to meet you, Dmitry Medvedev. Zero smiled slightly, then uttered a death sentence, and then, rest in peace. Before the smoke cleared, Zero had already sheathed his blade. Behind him was the blood-splattering Dmitri. However, Dmitri didn't die on the spot. This surprised Zero somewhat. Just as he was about to finish the opponent, Piao Xian arrived in time, looking at the opponents. Completely different eyes from before. Zero showed a satisfied smile. It's about time you showed yourself, Sean. However, did something happen to you? Saying this, he slowly drew his blade, slashing at Piao Xian with one stroke. Your expression looks better. When he saw clearly the thread-throwing knives in the opponent's hand, Zero's eyes lit up with excitement. Looks like you finally decided to fight seriously. Then I should properly match your level. With that, he assumed a fighting stance, a bloodthirsty gleam crossing his eyes. The moment the blade left its sheath, he instantly executed dozens of moves. Unexpectedly, Piao Xian wasn't far behind, dodging every strike. The next second, Piao Xian appeared behind Zero, attempting a sneak attack, but was blocked by Zero with the scabbard. He flashed instantly before Zero, and engaged in a frontal confrontation. Zero also realized during the opponent's each attack, Sean's speed is getting faster and faster. Their exchanges were like two bolts of lightning, dazzlingly fast. Even Slandy on the side was amazed at Piao Xian's growth rate. Here, Piao Xian leaped into the air, just as Zero thought he would attack from above. The opponent instead used threads to bind his body. Then Piao Xian directly delivered a downward slash, still blocked by Zero with the scabbard. Seeing him trying so hard, Zero spoke with interest. Why are you so agitated, Sean? Is it because of Eden? This sentence immediately enraged Piao Xian, who roared Zero's name. Zero flashed, landing several consecutive strikes on Piao Xian. While the two confronted each other, a car arrived at the scene. Park Pil-gyu got out and helped up Shin Gyu-tae. The latter weakly instructed him to make sure to bring both Dmitri and Zhang Xian back. As soon as the words fell, Zero flashed before him and asked, "You're Morgan's buyer, right?" He pulled out a photo of young Morgan and compared it with Park Pil-gyu, hesitating. "Don't tell me. You're Morgan?" Seeing this, Piao Xian anxiously wanted to rush forward but was blocked by Slandy, but he also had help. Dimitri blocked Slandy's attack with the shield. Piao Xian continued rushing toward Shin Gu-tae's side, but Spark came out to block. She threw a spherical bomb at his feet. The explosion's bright light instantly illuminated the entire field. When Piao Xian rushed to Shin Gu-tae's side, he found Zero had already disappeared. Then Shin Gu-tae told him Zero had taken Park Pil-gyu away. Hearing this news, Morgan instantly went berserk, saying she should have gone with Park Pil-gyu at that time. Piao Xian was very confused by her anger. Didn't he leave you behind precisely to prevent this from happening? In the end, only one punk was captured. Isn't that a good thing? These words had no comforting effect and instead made Morgan angrier. At this time, Dimitri came out to mediate. He first approved leaving Morgan behind, then pointed out what was inappropriate in Piao Xian's words. To her, the punk who was captured is her family. No matter what, you shouldn't say this is a good thing, kid. Do you understand what I'm saying? Hearing this, Piao Xian fell into thought. At this time, Shin Yu-tae tentatively asked, what will happen to our Pil-gyu? Piao Xian answered, Zero mistook him for Morgan. That's why he took him away. But he'll eventually show a flaw. It's just a matter of time. He'll probably come find us then. At this time, Eurus gently stroked Spark's head as she huddled in the corner, proposing, how about we use this one? Morgan found him too rough with children and quickly drove him away. Then she gently tore off the tape on Spark's mouth. Just freed, Spark sadly cried, tears rolling down like broken pearls. Slandy got hurt because of Spark. What to do? This way Zero won't come get Spark. Spark is no longer Zero's family. Meanwhile, Slandy was pointing a gun at Zero. At this moment, his anger had reached its peak. Why did you leave Spark there? With Spark there, I'd listen to you, remember? White hair. Zero glanced at his feet. Your leg is injured like that. Fighting won't be scary, right? Really? Slandy removed his mask, revealing his terrifying face underneath. Then let's try. Zero didn't want to conflict with this dangerous man, saying he'd find Spark back as soon as possible. The urgent matter was to deal with this fake Morgan first. He drew his blade, pressing it against Park Pil-gyu's left ear. When the other insisted he was Morgan, he decisively cut off his ear. Zero asked impatiently, do you know why I'm sparing your life? Park Pil-gyu endured the severe pain and answered, you want to use me as a hostage to exchange for Morgan or that brat, right? Zero said he had no such plan. I'm just very curious. He pressed the blade against Park Pil-gyu's right ear again. When you, who sacrificed yourself to replace Morgan, are dismantled piece by piece, what expression will the real Morgan show when appearing before me? With that, he handed Park Pil-gyu over to the glasses-wearing uncle. The uncle picked up a pair of pliers and walked to the suspended Park Pil-gyu, threatening him to reveal everything about Morgan. Park Pil-gyu insisted he was Morgan. Seeing kind persuasion didn't work, the uncle clamped his teeth. Just as he was about to act, Slandy appeared. With this method, he won't talk. Neither torture nor bribes will work, because there's no self in his heart at all. He told the glasses-wearing uncle not to interfere and let him handle it. He stared at Park Pil-gyu, saying in a deep voice, the point isn't which part of him to torture, but who we should torture. On the other side, Morgan coaxed Spark and sent her to sleep in the room, hearing she spent so much time just to coax a child. Piao Xian looked impatient. You should ask her where Zero is. Who told you to listen to a child throwing a tantrum? Then he prepared to enter the room to re-interrogate Spark. But Morgan blocked the door, not letting him in, saying they should let Spark rest first, then slowly inquire. She believed they shouldn't achieve their goal by harming children. Besides, even if Piao Xian found Zero, he'd just fight him again. Look at your condition and the allies lying down. This isn't a problem that can be solved by rushing over immediately. Piao Xian growled, that's why I want to do something. Anything. Looking at the indignant Piao Xian, Morgan angrily headbutted and yelled back defiantly, that's why we need to at least discuss a battle plan. You idiot brat. Are you the only one annoyed? The only one angry? My family member was kidnapped right now. At this point, tears were welling in her eyes. Her words struck Piao Xian like a blow to the head. He stopped shouting and turned toward the company's practice room. Then he pulled out his phone, bringing up the video recorded by the camera on Dimitri's shield, the fight with Zero. Wondering internally, I clearly got stronger, but is there still a gap in our abilities? However, when he saw the guns and equipment available in the practice room, he was surprised. He casually took down a knife and discovered it was a real blade. At this time, Morgan appeared and explained, don't look at me like this. I'm also an actress. Learning these things will come in handy someday. She approached Piao Xian and saw the video on his phone. Is that Zero? He looks pretty good. Saying this, she took his phone. Piao Xian clamored for her to return it, but she pulled out her ponytail, letting her hair fall. Quiet. I need to concentrate now. Then she did something that amazed Piao Xian. She assumed the exact same fighting stance as Zero, even her eyes identical. This was her ultimate skill, method acting. Then she slowly drew the blade. The moves and effects she released were 70% similar to Zero's. She flashed to Piao Xian's side like in the video, while reciting Zero's lines, where are you looking, Sean? Piao Xian had to pull out a weapon to respond. Morgan continued, why are you so agitated, Sean? Is it because of that guy? Morgan's tone, identical to Zero's, made Piao Xian feel as if he were there. Here, Morgan followed the video executing Zero's moves. The pain in her wrist made her experience Zero's terrifying nature. And Piao Xian also seemed to fall into that angry emotion, flashing to Morgan's side, saying in a deep voice, "He's not some guy." With that, he knocked the blade from Morgan's hand, embedding it in the ceiling. Then with a foot hook, he tripped her to the ground. Holding the blade, he thrust down at her, but stopped when the blade's tip was just a few centimeters from her face. Morgan, blushing, told him to get off, but Piao Xian suddenly spoke. "His name is Eden." Several tears fell on Morgan's clothes. He was clearly an uncle, but he said he was my brother. He wanted me to call him brother. Morgan gently wiped away the tears from his eyes, telling him to vent freely. No need to always act tough. No matter what, you're just a child. Crying when you want to cry is a child's privilege. At this moment, Piao Xian let down all defenses and cried indulgently on Morgan's shoulder. After crying, Piao Xian sparred again, with Morgan imitating Zero's fighting. Then Morgan explained what method acting was. "I can remember what my eyes see and perform it exactly the same, but I can't randomly imitate anyone. It can only be decided by the amount and difficulty of information for how long the acting can last. If the technique is too difficult, the body also can't handle it." Piao Xian found this ultimate skill amazing, and immediately asked Morgan to do it once more. The latter said doing it once was very tiring, but Piao Xian grabbed her hand, saying if they did it once or twice more, he'd have a good feeling. This suggestive dialogue made Xingyu Tae outside the door instantly explode. He pushed the door open, only to happen upon Morgan changing clothes, while the idiotic Piao Xian was still saying things like "Morgan is awesome." This made Xingyu Tae's rationality completely lost. He rolled up his sleeves, revealing the green dragon and white tiger tattoos on his arms. At this time, subordinates delivered a gift box, with "for Morgan" written on it. Xingyu Tae opened the gift box, his expression suddenly turning ugly. Inside the box was a bloody ear. Then several people discussed rescuing Park Pil-gyu. Ruikyu suggested starting with Spark, but Morgan opposed doing this. Just as the two were arguing, Xingyu Tae stood up, agreeing with Ruikyu's proposal. Morgan tried to persuade, but Xingyu Tae looked at her with tears. "Just understand this one time, because Park Pil-gyu was not only her and his family member, but also his only good brother. He absolutely couldn't let Park Pil-gyu die." He picked up a knife and walked towards Spark in the corner, asking where Zero was. Spark just kept repeating one sentence, "I hurt Slandy. If we hurt each other, we're not family anymore." Days of suppression and worry about Park Pil-gyu crushed his last rationality. He grabbed Spark, roaring, "What does that have to do with me?" Meanwhile, at the airport, Zero left Damien to handle the aftermath and left first. After Zero left, Damien received a call from the glasses-wearing uncle, Dominic. The other reported an unexpected situation. Slandy had taken Park Pil-gyu away. At this time, Slandy had already brought Park Pil-gyu to the SGT building. Seeing Park Pil-gyu, the security guard was somewhat surprised. Then Slandy, behind Park Pil-gyu, threw 2 spherical bombs at the guard's feet. Following a small explosion, the guard was unharmed, because Park Pil-gyu had blocked the explosion for him. Slandy held a sparkler in his mouth, murmuring, "You dared to take away my everything," also gripping several firecracker bombs. "Then I must return it double. I'll also destroy all of you." He showed a crazy smile. "If you still want to leave some remains, bring Spark here." With that, he threw the lit bombs at 2 bodyguards who rushed over, but the bombs were sliced in half by someone. It was Piao Xian arriving in time. Seeing him, Slandy quickly attacked. His fierce force knocked Piao Xian back several meters. Then he flashed before Piao Xian, clawing at him. Piao Xian dodged this claw while darting to Slandy's side, swinging a blade, then a spinning kick. That sent the opponent into the broadcasting hall. But this was nothing to Slandy. He immediately stood up, falling into an even more crazed state. "Hand over Spark!" The reason he valued Spark so much stemmed from a story. 10 years ago, in a certain mafia organization in D country, they kept a dog. He stained himself with dirt and blood for the organization, truly a loyal dog. But one day, that dog left its master. He wanted to find a new master, the cutest master in the world, his most precious daughter. He returned home with flowers, only to see pitch darkness. The moment he turned on the light, he saw a scene he would never forget. His wife and daughter had been murdered in their home. Overwhelming despair made him momentarily neglect what was behind him. He was knocked unconscious. White roses fell in the pool of blood, stained with death and sorrow. When he awoke, the surroundings were engulfed in flames, and his wife and daughter's bodies were gradually charring in the fire. He crawled toward them with difficulty, holding his daughter's small hand, trembling as he said, "You're still so warm." Then the fire intensified, consuming everything in the house. But hell had no place for him. He escaped from the inferno and came before his former colleagues, today's murderers. He shot and killed those demons, himself burned by flames into a monster resembling human and ghost, and the locket in his hand, containing photos of his wife and daughter, was the only treasure to survive that fire. At this moment, subordinates reported the explosion to Xingyu Tae. He guessed could it be Zero. This sentence immediately caught Spark's attention. She immediately stood up, pulling out a spherical bomb from her bun, then threw the lit bomb into the air. At this time, Slandy, who came for her, was still fighting. After being cut by Piao Xian, he began shooting at the opponent with his gun, but Piao Xian nimbly dodged the continuous shooting, first slashing Slandy's waist, then stabbing a blade into his calf, precisely the position injured by Dimitri's bear trap. Slandy's body immediately swayed unsteadily. But how could a monster fall easily? Slandy immediately abandoned the gun, using his claws as weapons. With a clang, he crushed the floor beneath Piaoxian's feet. Then he broke his weapon. This fierce offensive made Piaoxian difficult to handle. In the process, his cheek was also scratched. But Slandy got more excited as he fought, white mist even swirling around his body. Piaoxian couldn't help but be distracted, Aura. It was this moment of distraction that let Slandy grab his head and slam it hard into the wall, then smash him like a basketball from the wall to the floor. At this moment, Piaoxian's head was already bleeding profusely, but he showed a strange smile. "I found your weakness." With that, with a crack, he twisted Slandy's right hand off. Slandy quickly retreated several meters. He suddenly discovered Piaoxian's eyes had changed. He quickly reset his hand. The two were in heated battle when Xingyu suddenly appeared. He held a knife to Spark's throat in his arms, threatening Slandy to stop. Sure enough, Slandy went crazy because of this. He roared at Xingyu to let go, but the other pressed the knife closer to Spark's tender neck, drawing a thin bloodline on her skin. At this moment, for Morgan, he had completely thrown caution to the wind. Looking at the teary-eyed Spark, Slandy compromised. He did something shocking. Under Piaoxian's astonished gaze, he knelt before Xingyu, humbly begging, "Release Spark, I'll do as you say. Please, I beg you." Xingyu gritted his teeth. "You care about this brat that much? Pilgyu's ear was cut off by you." "Ear?" "No." Slandy pinched 2 blood holes in his neck. "I can give you my neck too." In an instant, blood flowed profusely. His tone even carried a hint of choking, "So please, don't take away my world again." This horrifying scene made Xingyu choke up. He finally softened, releasing Spark and pushing her towards Slandy, then said, "Do you know why I brought Moa back from Deadpool Tower? I used to be a punk doing bad things. I didn't understand anything and had no skills. For a long time, I mixed in underground KTVs or nightclubs, but so what? This was the life I chose. Until one day, I looked up and discovered a world completely different from me. Bright, dazzling, completely different from us. At that time, I had a thought, I also want to live happily in that dazzling place." Just like that, we spent all our savings to bring Morgan back. I thought with this child, we'd become famous quickly, but raising a child isn't simple. Even so, we still felt happy, right? Saying this, he and Park Pilgju smiled at each other. He looked at Slandy and Spark before him, like father and daughter. "Thanks to you this time, I understand. Living happily with these guys, arguing and laughing, that's probably the life I want." After hearing this, Slandy asked Xingyu Tai's name, then told him they'd soon face each other because Judas would absolutely not give up the good children. "But one thing I can guarantee," Slandy put his mask back on, solemnly promising, "I'll also protect your world once." On the other side, Slandy's unauthorized action disrupted Damien's plan. He looked at the man in the leopard print coat behind. Plan changed. "Attack Morgan's side immediately now. Consider this your newcomer interview." Meanwhile, Piaoxian, who'd ceased hostilities, returned to the lounge to find Ruikyu had brought Mary. As soon as the two met, they began sarcastically bickering. Unexpectedly, Eugene also followed and stopped them both. Then Mary proposed an idea. "Find the children who might contact Zero." Ruikyu added, "We compared the characteristics of children Vincent remembers with children I've noticed. I've compiled their information." Mary cooperated, "And we've already won over several of them. They'll come join us soon." "How capable are they? Trustworthy?" Piaoxian asked. Rikyu said she'd paid a huge sum to hire them as mercenaries, but Mary thought this wasn't enough. She pulled out Moa's solo concert poster, saying this plan could catch Zero in one net. This news was also seen by the leopard print man. This person, version 1 specializing in combat skills, Kona, said leisurely, "So this woman called Moa is Morgan?" The suited man beside, also version 1 specializing in assassination techniques, Alec, answered, looking carefully. "You can still see traces of the past on her face." The two then mocked Morgan together. At this time, Damien urged them to hurry and follow, but the two said they wouldn't follow his command. It turned out they were the other 2 children in the photo. The mercenaries Ruikyu hired were precisely them, and the reason they waited here was only to see Damien with their own eyes. As the words fell, Kona struck first, punching Damien into a shipping container. Then Alex scattered threads binding Damien's whole body, pulling hard, immediately shattering both person and cargo. Just as the two thought the opponent was so easily dealt with, Damien suddenly appeared, kicking Alec flying with a spinning kick. Kona quickly exchanged kicks with him, but the calf that touched the opponent suddenly fractured and spurted blood. Damien had hidden steel plates in his pant legs. Then Alex Sneak attacked behind Damien, but the opponent leaped up, dodging his attack, then fiercely kicked his head and smoothly knee-struck Kona's jaw. Then he raised his foot, revealing a blade on the shoe sole, kicking Kona several times. Blood splattered instantly. Finally, he raised his foot high and heavily stomped on Kona's back of the head. Watching Damien continuously abusing Kona before him, Alec finally realized what terrifying opponent they were facing. On the other side, unable to contact Kona and Alec like Ruikyu called them. However, the strange yet familiar voice on the phone made her frown. "Are you Damien? Did those two join Judas?" Damien stomped on Alec. "What? We don't want this trash." When Ruikyu wanted to ask more, he suddenly hung up. Then he noticed a figure appearing in the corner. It was Sika. Seeing her, an interesting idea immediately emerged in his mind, so he asked Sika to help him with something. Inside the building, staff were orderly cleaning up the aftermath. During cleanup, Park Pil-gyu found a box, a gift from fans for Moa, but Shin-gyu-tae told him to just throw it away. In this situation, such things of unknown origin were really too dangerous, but Morgan suddenly appeared, snatching the box away, loudly questioning the two. "This was sent to me by fans. Are you throwing them all away?" Shin-gyu-tae angrily scolded her. "Had enough? Don't you see everyone's risking their lives?" Morgan still argued. "I mean, it's exaggerated." Hearing this, Shin-gyu-tae strode toward her, knocking the box from her hand and roaring sternly, "Protecting you from any harm. That's our job. In this situation, we can only do this, so just do what you should do." Morgan choked back and shouted, "Then why should I even stand on stage?" However, the man just turned his back to her, answering nothing, so she also left in a huff. After Morgan left, Park Pil-gyu sighed. "Why say things against your heart?" Shin-gyu-tae's tone was dejected. "Pil-gyu, I can't figure out my own heart anymore. I don't want you all hurt from Moa, but I also don't want to lose Moa. What should I do at times like this?" 1 week later, the day of Moa's concert. 30 minutes before the performance started, everyone was on standby, each doing their part. Mary was in the lighting room, in charge of controlling the overall situation and commanding everyone. Eugene was in the parking lot outside the performance venue, assisting with commands. Also acting with him was Eurus. Dimitri, disguised as security, guarding the front of the hall. Ruikyu, disguised as an audience member, moving alone in the crowd. Piao Xian stood at the highest point of the scaffold, overlooking the whole situation. Finally was the stage's focus, idol Moa. After confirming everyone's positions, Mary said the lights would dim in 5 seconds. The performance would officially begin when the spotlight turned on. Meanwhile, everyone encountered enemies at their respective standby positions. In the parking lot where Eurus and Eugene were, Sika appeared slowly with the controlled Alec. On Dimitri's side, he faced the similarly controlled Kona. In the audience seats, Dominic found Ruikyu, and confronting Piao Xian directly was his old opponent Slandy. After the 5-second countdown, the lights came on. The concert prologue officially began, and the battle between Bad Children and Judas also opened. Inside the parking lot, Eurus struck first. Sika lightly touched Alec's shoulder, issuing a command, "Order, eliminate them." Alec, receiving the order, Alec charged at Eurus like a rocket. Hearing this familiar name, Eugene wondered why the other had suddenly joined Judas, but no time to think about that now. He immediately warned Eurus this person was no pushover, but Eurus was busy responding and didn't notice the opponent's stabbing blade. At the critical moment, Eugene blocked this strike for him. Now Eurus didn't dare be careless and focused on dealing with the enemy. He quickly dodged Alec's strike, then leaped above the opponent's head, striking Alec down toward the barrier railing with his staff. But Sika crouched beside the collapsed Alec, gently stroking his face, ordering again, "Order, stand up, Alec." Accompanied by creaking joints throughout his body, Alec stood up crookedly. Seeing this, Eugene analyzed, "That woman's ability is suspicious. She seems to control people like puppets. Forcing that broken body to stand, he seems to be in a state without self-awareness now." But Eurus found this very interesting. He could use Alec as a punching bag, but Eugene advised him to formulate a battle plan first, because he didn't know if that woman could control multiple puppets. In other words, other enemies might be ambushed nearby. However, his words came true. A figure suddenly appeared behind. That person was Miguel, who had fought with Zhang Shan before. Meanwhile, just as Dimitri entered a defensive state, Kona charged before him, punching him, flying 10 meters away. This punch caused Dimitri's wound left by Zero to split open and bleed again. At this time, the opponent attacked again, muttering, "Escape quickly." On this side, after Miguel's sneak attack, Eugene lay on the ground motionless. Eurus anxiously kept calling to him, but Miguel appeared again, using that move Banner Bearer on him. With one careless moment, Eurus's left leg was pierced. Meanwhile, Alec also charged toward Eurus from behind. Eurus first dodged his blade, then fiercely pulled out the rapier from his left leg, but was thus cornered by the two into a dead end. Knowing he was in mortal danger, tragic childhood memories floated through his mind. As a child, he was always covered in wounds, because his father would always brutally beat him with a baseball bat after getting drunk. Just like that, he broke many bats. But that day was a very different day. He lay paralyzed on the ground, silently crying as usual. His father also raised the baseball bat high as usual, but the moment the bat fell, it was tightly gripped by a large hand. Igor appeared like a god, ending his father and also ending his tragic childhood. At this thought, Eurus laughed lowly, then fiercely struck the ground with his baseball bat, stirring up a pile of pebbles. He used the pebbles as baseballs, striking fiercely toward the two. Taking advantage of their distraction, Eurus quickly escaped the rapier formation. Then he pulled out 2 blue balls made of tungsten carbide with excellent elasticity, throwing them forcefully at obstacles. The balls continuously bounced, hitting Alec and Miguel, but Alec, specializing in assassination, escaped. So Eurus pulled out 2 yellow balls, and struck at Alec. The balls flew to the opponent's side, suddenly spitting out steel wires, tightly binding his body. Finally, Eurus pulled out several red balls. When the balls flew before Alec, sharp blades suddenly extended from inside, fiercely piercing his body. This was Eurus's final weapon, the memory alloy ball bear claw blade with embedded blades. On this side, Miguel corrected his knocked askew body and continued attacking, but was KO'd by Eugene with a rabbit kick. It turned out he'd been playing dead to make the enemy lower their guard. He first praised Eurus's excellent performance, then mocked how cringeworthy he looked, introducing his weapons and usage during battle. This mockery immediately made the thin-skinned Eurus's cheeks flush red. While the two bickered, a figure appeared behind Eurus, kicking him flying. The newcomer was Damien. His appearance was undoubtedly a huge danger for the two. On this side, Dimitri was still fiercely battling Kona. After barely dodging the opponent's punch, Dimitri discovered Kona's strength was astonishingly great. The next second, Kona flashed to Dimitri's side, constantly saying escape quickly, then landed another heavy punch to Dimitri's abdomen. Dimitri heard his words clearly, guessing the opponent might be driven by someone else to keep attacking. He quietly pulled out an axe from the storage locker and slashed at Kona. Though the opponent barely dodged, he lost his center of gravity and fell to the ground. Dimitri looked at the various melee weapons in the storage cabinet. Scared? Knowing you were coming, we prepared too. Are you satisfied? On the other side, the moment Piao Xian and Slandy clashed, the gun barrel aimed at the former's head, then burst with dazzling sparks. Morgan at center stage naturally noticed this flash. The audience below also heard the explosion. Seeing this, Mary quickly adjusted the lighting, directing all spotlights onto Morgan. Mary urgently contacted everyone through radio, but only Ruikyu responded, saying she'd already encountered an enemy. Mary immediately told her she'd turn on all venue lighting in 2 seconds. The moment the lights suddenly brightened, Ruikyu grabbed Dominic's wrist and bent it upward, making the opponent's gun barrel lose aim. Taking this opportunity, she quickly retreated. Dominic looked left and right but couldn't find her figure. Suddenly, he sensed dangerous eyes from behind, quickly turning to look, but saw nothing. Instead, his thigh was slashed open. The next second, his wrist was also cut. He had to first stop his bleeding, not daring to act rashly. With weapons added, Dimitri no longer feared Kona's monstrous strength. When he charged at the opponent holding a shovel, he was kicked in his abdominal wound. The severe pain made him stagger. Then he was knocked down by Kona's hook punch. Then Kona unleashed a storm of iron fist combos on him. In this moment, Dimitri recalled the old days hunting bears in the mountains with Igor. Back then, he'd hunted the mountain's largest bear, but Igor asked what was nailed under the bear's jaw. He answered he'd used a small knife, but Igor taught him not to rely on blades, because in his eyes, Dimitri's strongest weapon was precisely his fists. Just as Igor said, the moment Dimitri raised his fists, Kona had already fallen into disadvantage. After punching him back with one strike, Dimitri slowly removed his suit, revealing his muscular physique inside. He walked toward Kona, saying in a deep voice, "Let's work up a real sweat." When the opponent charged, he seized Kona's head, flipping him with a knee strike. Then the two grabbed each other's collars, engaging in the most primitive mutual beating. The collision of fists and flesh continuously splattered blood, but neither begged for mercy. Finally, it ended with Kona's fall. But Dimitri didn't finish him off, instead laughing at Kona. "You worked hard, kid." However, Piao Xian and Slandy's battle still continued. Slandy pulled out several sparkler bombs, throwing them all at Piao Xian. After the smoke cleared, Slandy didn't see the opponent's figure. The person he sought was directly below him. Piao Xian used threads to leap behind Slandy, kicking the opponent's head. Then he quickly retreated, using threads. At this time, he observed white smoke coming from Slandy's mouth again. He decided to continue forcing Slandy to act. However, Slandy's strength was still formidable. One punch nearly made Piao Xian lose his grip on the scaffold. Slandy pursued relentlessly. Another punch breaking the support Piao Xian was gripping. He looked down at Piao Xian below. "Do you think you've grasped my weakness?" His eyes grew more excited. "Then push me harder, Sean." Piao Xian quickly called Park Pil-gyu through radio, instructing him to prioritize protecting Moa no matter what happened. However, he didn't know that at this moment, Park Pil-gyu had already directly encountered Sika. Then he had Mary begin executing the plan they'd discussed beforehand. With her adjustments, the machines on the scaffold began buzzing. During intermission, Shin-gyu Tae called Morgan to the lounge, suggesting she stop the performance first. But Morgan suddenly brought up childhood matters. She'd once held Shin-gyu Tae's knife, clamoring to be gangsters together. Because he told her the dark things were for them to do, she only needed to be a shining star. Another time, she wanted a doll. Shin-gyu Tae and the others searched for 3 whole days. Later, she learned that doll wasn't merchandise but someone's handmade craft. But Park Pil-gyu still found it for her. In other words, he personally made a doll for her. So to her, the uncles were shining stars. From then on, she vowed to become someone else's star, just as the uncles became her stars. She'd achieved this too. When she looked at fans from the stage, she found them dazzling. The fans made her feel all their reactions were genuine. Thanks to them, she could shine brightly on stage, so she wanted to fight for a bit more time. She wanted the uncles to see that dazzling world. She would become an eternally shining star for them. Hearing these words, Shin-gyu Tae was deeply moved. At this time, Park Pil-gyu pushed the door open, and the first thing he did was punch Shin-gyu Tae flying. Sika then walked in, order, subdue Morgan. The moment Park Pil-gyu charged, Morgan noticed something abnormal in his eyes. She quickly slapped Park Pil-gyu, actually making him regain consciousness for a moment. Sika ordered again, "Order, capture Morgan." Before the words fell, Park Pil-gyu grabbed Morgan in a bear hug. The next second, she gently pushed him away. Morgan looked at Sika, blue light flashing in her right eye. "You really love harassing people's uncles, don't you?" It turned out she'd used method acting to imitate Sika's ability, freeing Park Pil-gyu from control. Meanwhile, the lights behind Piao Xian suddenly brightened. The moment Slandy charged before him, Piao Xian used that move hammer, knocking Slandy back several meters. Observing the white smoke continuously coming from the opponent's mouth, his guess was verified. Then he landed consecutive heavy strikes on Slandy. Slandy was secretly shocked. What's happening? How did he suddenly become faster than me? When he felt his limbs stiffening, he finally realized something was wrong. He himself had become sluggish. Piao Xian revealed the truth. "You have burn injuries, right? Every time you fight, smoke comes from your mouth. Because burns blocked your sweat glands, your body is in an overheated state. The outside looks normal, but the inside should be almost cooked, right?" Hearing this, Slandy finally understood the opponent had been waiting for his body temperature to rise before turning on the lights. But his next move shocked Piao Xian immensely. He twisted off an iron pipe, fiercely inserting it into his right arm, making the wound spurt blood, forcibly cooling his body this way. His gaze was grim. "Alright, now let's start round 2, Sean." On this side, Sika reordered Park Pil-gyu to eliminate Morgan. He immediately turned and charged at Morgan. Morgan immediately issued a new order. At this time, her method acting presentation had reached 55%. She had Park Pil-gyu deal with Sika, but found her controlled Park Pil-gyu moved very sluggishly. At this time, a staff member discovered Sika at the door. Sika casually used him as a tool person, blocking Park Pil-gyu's attack. Morgan instantly realized the opponent could control multiple people simultaneously. She quickly ordered that staff member to escape outside the venue, overriding Sika's command. Sika controlled several more staff members in the corridor. Several people all attacked Morgan. Morgan quickly overrode Sika's orders on them one by one. However, just as she finished overriding the last staff member's order, she was punched flying by Park Pil-gyu. Only then did she realize not just Park Pil-gyu, everyone present had been recontrolled by Sika. Sika's eyes flashed, "Order, eliminate Morgan." Looking at the people running toward her, despair covered Morgan's heart. Her body had reached its limit. She recalled when she was little, not wanting to practice dancing, she'd always hide. The uncles would search for her everywhere. At that time, Park Pil-gyu found her, telling her he was also hiding here to rest and couldn't be discovered by others, asking Morgan to protect him well. Back then, little her vowed to protect her uncle well. When she grew a bit older, she learned the two uncles were just trying to make her happy. At this moment, the scene repeated. Park Pil-gyu stood before her, letting the other controlled people continuously stab him with knives. Morgan was in tears of pain, because even now, the uncles were still protecting her. "Order, everyone stop." As the order was issued, everyone instantly froze. Morgan's right eye blazed brightly. That kind of order. "Go command dogs." Everyone snap out of it. As the words fell, Park Pil-gyu regained consciousness. Sika quickly ordered those two staff members. "Order, eliminate those two." Morgan immediately countered her order. "Order, no unauthorized personnel allowed here. Beat that woman up and throw her out." At this moment, her method acting reached 100%. Sika hastily dodged the two's attacks, wanting to order again, but Morgan wouldn't give her the chance. She punched Sika's beautiful face, shouting fiercely, "Get off our stage!" With Sika's curtain call, Piao Xian and Slandy's battle also seemed to reach a conclusion. He lay on the scaffold covered in wounds, recalling that childhood incident. His dying, blood-covered mother said to little him, "Sean, you're a good child." She gently stroked his face, telling him to forget this painful memory, while giving him a new name, Piao Xian. Then she looked at him lovingly, saying her final words, "Forget those principles of being a good child. Don't be bound by such things." At this moment, looking at those wires overhead, courage suddenly arose in his heart. He pulled those wires, slowly standing up. Then using the force, he quickly ran past Slandy, binding him tightly with the wires, while shouting loudly, "Piao Xian, that's my name. Not some Sean." At this moment, he broke free from the absolute three principles constraints, establishing laws belonging only to himself. He used all his strength to fiercely swing Slandy toward the electronic screen. The screen shattered, the leaking current electrocuting Slandy into painful screams. And at this moment, Piao Xian also completed his true transformation. Then he remembered he'd once passed by Haoxian's snack shop on a snowy day, also seeing little Huang Haoxian and young Haoxian's mother. The happiness before his eyes stung his eyes. He chose to leave dejectedly, but Huang Haoxian noticed him and gave him a serving of hot, spicy rice cakes. "What's your name?" Huang Haoxian asked at that time. He proudly recited the name his mother had given him with love, "I'm Piao Xian." Then, Haoxian's mother also noticed him, telling him to come inside to eat. So Huang Haoxian held his hand, following Haoxian's mother together into the warm shop. Those two became the indelible warmth in his life. At this thought, Piao Xian murmured, "That's right. My law started from that moment. Protect my family." As the words fell, Damien suddenly appeared. He disgustedly kicked the unconscious Slandy, burnt corpse face, boys, always acting tough. Look at this pathetic state. Then he wanted to use the blade on his shoe sole to end the opponent's life, but was stopped by Piao Xian. Isn't this guy your companion? What are you doing? Damien unceremoniously kicked him, saying, companion? You're still saying such childish things? Piao Xian defiantly mocked him for having no friends. But Damien tapped his head, saying playfully that uncle called Eden. I gave him quite a pleasant strike then. He didn't die? This sentence was like a club striking Piao Xian's heart. His pupils suddenly dilated, cold flames burning in his eyes. Damien quickly raised his foot, the steel wire at the shoe edge slashing out. The wire's sharpness instantly carved a deep mark on the ground. Piao Xian dodged the attack, then charged fiercely at him, while grabbing the overhead wires, using the force for a fierce kick. Though Damien blocked with both hands, he was still kicked flying several meters. Piao Xian immediately verbally mocked Damien. Damien's veins bulged in anger, wanting to continue fighting. On stage, Moa's second performance timely began. Damien immediately jumped onto a high scaffold, using the steel wire on his feet to cut all the wires connecting lighting equipment above the audience's heads. The lighting equipment fell with a crash. At the critical moment, Piao Xian swung over gripping wires, kicking the steel frame toward the falling lighting equipment, knocking them away. That equipment instead flew toward Morgan on stage. Piao Xian swung again, kicking away the equipment about to hit Morgan. Just as Piao Xian wanted to catch his breath, Damien swish cut down a section of high steel scaffold several times. Seeing the steel frame about to hit the audience below, Morgan let out a heart-wrenching cry. Just then, a man firmly caught this steel frame. He carried Yuri's on his left shoulder and the steel frame on his right, asking Dimitri, holding Eugene beside, "Is this also part of the performance? Isn't it too childish, Demi?" When he saw the man's face clearly, Damien was incredibly shocked. What? That man was clearly already dead. It turned out this man was precisely Barefoot's boss, Red Fist Igor Medvedev. The reason he survived was because after drifting at sea for 3 days, he swam to K country's territorial waters and happened to encounter a fishing boat, thus surviving. He also realized from this that before nature's laws, humans and beasts have no difference, only strong and weak, and this time, his law was a bit stronger than the storm. At this time, the audience began wondering whether what just happened was an accident or stage effects. Morgan quickly warmed up the crowd, announcing the second performance would begin. Piao Xian didn't understand why she still wanted to continue performing in this situation, but Morgan said this was precisely a good opportunity to catch the enemy in one net. Piao Xian understood, immediately pointing at Damien to announce round 2 officially began. Seeing this, the audience believed this series of accidents were shows specially arranged by the concert. At the concert's last row, Spark anxiously came to Slandy's side. Looking at the man charred black by electricity, her worried tears continuously fell. Damien appeared behind her at the right time, impatiently lifting her, wanting to throw her to the corner, but Slandy grabbed his wrist. While the two confronted each other, a steel frame torn in half was heavily thrown behind them. Igor had caught up with them. Seeing Igor, Damien immediately fled. He threw this hot potato Igor to Slandy, himself turning to deal with Piao Xian. Though Slandy was helpless, he had to fight. On the stage side, Damien made a comeback, landing at stage center in a handsome pose. Such smooth operation immediately drew cheers from the whole venue. The noisy scene made Damien feel irritated, but Piao Xian mockingly taunted him for posing. This angered Damien into immediately attacking him. The two fought fiercely again, but Piao Xian was no pushover. A hook punch hit Damien's abdomen, followed by a clean spinning kick, kicking Damien flying several meters. Damien nearly fell off the stage, saying in a low voice, "You guy, aren't you supposed to be Deadpool Tower's legend?" But Piao Xian was tired of this title. What masterpiece legend? You all decided that on your own? I'm not under anyone's orders or requirements. I only follow laws I establish myself. He raised a confident smile. If anyone touches my family and friends, I'll beat them all up. That's my law. Igor, at the other end of the stage, agreed with Piao Xian's thinking. Dimitri was very surprised he could hear sounds from the stage side. Igor very cringely pounded his chest, saying a man's aspiration is hearts in harmony. He looked at Slandy, assuming a fighting stance before him. I respect your decision to fight me in that physical state, but today doesn't seem to be the day our fates resonate. As the words fell, a bullet penetrated the venue's glass dome, landing at Slandy's feet. He looked up, seeing a helicopter hovering above. A woman in military uniform on the aircraft was aiming at Slandy. This person was a member of the Alexandra family, Alexandra Elisa. Slandy looked at Igor in surprise. The latter explained, "Sorry, I didn't come alone either," and the reinforcements he mentioned were currently slowly passing through the crowd, then whoosh jumping onto the stage, blocking between the two fighting. He looked at Damien Judas. From this moment, the L Country Mercenary Alliance officially recognizes you as enemies. We won't tolerate you causing chaos everywhere anymore. Looking at the emblem on the youth's cloak, Piao Xian immediately recognized it as Alexandra's crest. Then the youth raised his hand. From now on, we, the Alexandra family, will forcibly bring. Assuming a cringeworthy trustworthy pose all of Judas's Zero and members away. The reason he came here was dispatched by Sophia. She held a meeting with Vincent and Baruka, proposing the three families jointly form the L-Country Mercenary Alliance. Learning Sophia had reached agreement with Igor, Baruka naturally had no objections, but Vincent was clearly still hesitating. Sophia said since Judas's leader came from Deadpool Tower should also bear corresponding responsibility. Facing Sophia's powerful pressure, Vincent naturally didn't dare raise objections and could only be forced to agree. Then Sophia said Judas was currently attacking the good children's parents, asking if they had clients needing special attention. Vincent speculated the good child codenamed 3 should become Zero's target, but Baruka said no problem, because he'd hidden 3 in an underground fortress. He just didn't know Zero, and Sika had already found that place and taken 3 away. He asked Sophia about K-Country's situation. The latter told him not to worry, because she'd dispatched an outstanding youth, the cloaked boy currently standing on stage. The youth leaped up, jumping above Damien's head, then with a spinning kick, sent Damien flying. But Piao Xian heard explosion-like sounds from his kick, becoming curious about this youth's identity. This kick from the youth was enormously powerful, directly making Damien vomit blood and fall into the crowd. Facing others' concern, he disgustedly yelled at them to get lost. At this time, Shin Yu-tae and Park Pil-gyu led subordinates surrounding him, preparing to forcibly take him away. Piao Xian and Morgan suddenly felt something was wrong and quickly rushed to their position. Sure enough, Damien swung out steel wire, preparing to execute Shin Yu-tae and others on the spot. However, just as he was about to act, Slandy, who suddenly flashed, knocked him out with one punch. Slandy, who'd always disliked him, precisely commented, as expected, a trash-like guy. Then he looked at Shin Yu-tae beside. I've already kept my promise. If we must get to the bottom of it, consider this my law. He hoisted Damien up, having Spark use her treasure. Spark happily pulled out a small golden pistol from her chest, firing one shot at the sky. The next second, smoke filled the venue. In the smoke, Igor found Slandy. So you're still going to run away? Today I also have something to protect, Slandy answered. It's time for the curtain call now. With that, he disappeared into the smoke. Igor didn't stop him, instead saying appreciatively, that's not a bad answer. The smoke cleared. Everyone looked at the empty field center, thinking the performance had ended, then erupted in enthusiastic cheers, demanding Morgan perform again. Piao Xian sat on the ground, pushing this burden to Morgan. Facing everyone's expectations, Morgan gripped the microphone tightly, showing a brilliant smile. Please watch until the very end. At this time, Piao Xian glimpsed that cloaked youth quietly leaving. As if sensing his gaze, the youth turned back, meeting his eyes. At this moment, a familiar feeling surrounded Piao Xian's heart. Meanwhile, in the corridor, Dominic handed Ruikyu a document. This document would become powerful assistance against Judas. On the other side, in a certain basement, seeing Zero complain about no phone signal, Sika asked if he was worried about K-Country's situation, but Zero smiled, saying Damien and their action was destined to fail, because their opponent was Deadpool Tower's greatest masterpiece, Sean. Mentioning Sean, excitement flashed in his eyes. I'm more looking forward to Sean. Next time we meet, what will he have become? With that, the two came before a peculiarly designed door. Just upon entering, a voice rang out, "You're late. Only coming to find me now?" Seeing the scene before him, Zero couldn't help but sigh. That's right, I was really too slow. I clearly came to find number 3. Why are you here? Number 4, Alina. The battle with Judas came to a pause. Piao Xian came to the hospital to visit Eden, telling him the story of what happened at Moa's concert. He sat beside Eden, sighing. Anyway, it's such a pity you didn't see it. Looking at the man's gaunt cheeks, several traces of heartache crossed his eyes. Then he also told Eden he'd recalled some past memories, and the law he'd established himself. At this time, a woman wearing a baseball cap pushed the door open. It was Morgan in disguise. She walked to Eden's side, curiously examining him, then complained Piao Xian wasn't as handsome as him. The two bickered again. Then they pushed Eden downstairs for a walk. During this, Morgan told Piao Xian that regarding this concert accident, Shin Yu-tae claimed externally it was a promotional activity for a new action film. Who knew this explanation really attracted investors? Morgan really achieved her goal of making a movie. At this point, she smiled sweetly at Piao Xian. You protected my and the uncle's world. Thank you, Piao Xian. The girl's brilliant smile seemed to strike Piao Xian's heart. He immediately became awkward, pushing Eden forward, not noticing Eden's slightly twitching mouth corner. At this time, Morgan seemed to remember something, suddenly catching up. The investor for our movie wants to meet you. So Piao Xian came to the agreed rooftop with anticipation. But the moment he saw Sophia, his movie star dreams suddenly shattered. Seeing Piao Xian turn to leave, Sophia spoke. Where are you going? Little brat Sean. Piao Xian waved his hand, saying she'd mistaken him. Sophia's mouth corner curved up. I see, I really seem to have mistaken. You're no longer Sean, but Piao Xian, right? This sentence made Piao Xian suddenly stop. Sophia sighed lovingly. You've suffered quite a bit, disciple. Then she told Piao Xian, something important. A man wanted to join Piao Xian's bad children organization. Meanwhile, Mary was studying a map with the director's location marked. She asked Ruriku, somewhat surprised where this came from. But Ruriku said to explain this matter in detail later, having Mary immediately formulate a battle plan. They must rescue the director as soon as possible. On the other side, on the way to the location Sophia mentioned, Piao Xian was heavy-hearted. He recalled Sophia's explanation about planting someone in the organization. I can't say more because this isn't yet a struggle for your generation. Build up your organization, Piao Xian. You'll need that man. Go to that place. Until this moment, he still couldn't fully understand Sophia's words, nor understand why she told him to come to Haoxian's snack shop. The moment he saw Huang Haoxian, his mind recalled the last conversation with Huang Haoxian, immediately feeling retreat and quickly slipping into the corner. But he remembered he'd already found the answer to Huang Haoxian's question. He longed to have family and was determined to protect family, so he walked to the shop entrance again, walking toward that person he'd never dared face. However, when Huang Haoxian noticed Piao Xian, he grabbed Piao Xian and ran, only leaving the confused mother behind. After taking Piao Xian out of his mother's sight, Huang Haoxian immediately fought him, and the usually formidable Deadpool Tower ace was actually kicked flying several meters by the opponent. This familiar kick made a guess vaguely emerge in Piao Xian's heart. Meanwhile, Huang Haoxian assumed the same cringeworthy pose as the cloaked youth that day. This scene confirmed Piao Xian's guess. Huang Haoxian was that cloaked youth. While enduring Huang Haoxian's attacks, he murmured, "Could the man Sophia said would join our organization be you, Haoxian?" Hearing this, Huang Haoxian's eyes suddenly turned cold. Even if it's Sophia's instruction, I won't do it, can't do it. Stop talking nonsense, get lost immediately, Piao Xian. On the other side, on a certain island prison, held the director that Rikyu and the others had been concerned about for so long. At this time, Zero appeared, saying, "You controlled the children, turning them into weapons for sale. I actually think your idea is good. Your method just exchanged the children's potential for money. Have you finally approved of me as a father?" the director asked. "But only that far. Aren't there many worse methods?" Zero answered. "You know very well what those children can change, but you felt fear about it, wanting to control it in your own hands, which is why it ended up like this. So you want to be the one who saves them?" the director asked again. "Of course not. I'm not that kind of good child," Zero answered lightly. "Didn't I just say? I think your idea is good, so just watch from here. Watch what I can change using those children." On the other side, Zhongshan's residence. When he stared at the cloth band in his hand for the nth time, a figure slowly approached. The newcomer had an H tattoo on their forehead, greeting Zhongshan in a lazy tone. "Long time no see, Zhongshan," where shadows loom, past karmic connections quietly resurface once more.